Hey there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of cores.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
Why do you look so scared?
Happy Halloween, Smite fans, and welcome in to a spooky edition of the SMITE Pro League and a particularly godly edition of the SMITE Pro League. Not only do you have Zeus and Uller here with you on the desk, but throughout the day you'll be seeing some varying degrees of accurate display here. We've also got Raijin, Kakullen, and Susano, of course, joining the broadcast, which should be a lot of fun. So I don't know what they're doing over there.
I want to throw this axe at them so badly, dude.
That shouldn't be allowed, whatever I'm seeing.
And he told me not to, so I'm keeping a grip on it, but I really want to throw it.
Very sorry we had to show you that, but that's how it goes around here. Before we get into it, of course, we got to thank our title sponsor for the SPL in Season 8. I'm sure Alienware is so stoked to be attached to this broadcast. They're going to have a lot of fun. Make sure you're checking out all of their great products at smitegame.com/Alienware. You know all our pros are using those amazing Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops and the 25-inch Alienware gaming monitors. And again, Alienware or smitegame.com/Alienware and using code SMITEAW in order to get the best deals on some of Alienware's best products. As I mentioned, Zeus and Uller here for the beginning of the day. And Uller, we've got a pretty big matchup here today. I mean, the Jade Dragons up against the Atlantis Leviathans should be a good one.
Both undefeated right now and a pretty good spot to be in. If you get to 2-0 here, you're not necessarily guaranteed to make it to playoffs, but I think actually probably guaranteed to make it a playoff, so you're in a good spot if you're able to go forward here. And both being undefeated, it's also one of the closest matchups I think we've had all year. I think the Dragons have a shade more games over the Leviathans, but it has been very back and forth the entire time.
Well, let's take a look at the weekly schedule so you can see what you may have missed on this Halloween weekend. It's been a pretty big week for this debut best of fives in the group stages. The Atlantis Leviathans and Jade Dragons both undefeated so far, as Uller mentioned just a minute ago. And then, of course, we have the Olympus Bolts up against the Solar Scarabs as our second set of the day. And both sets will be being played live. So not only will we get the best of the best when it comes to the content and have some in-person interviews and all that kind of good stuff, but all of these players get to look at us in our costumes, which is also great for us individually.
I had joked that my costume wasn't actually Uller, but is actually Panda Cat. Because I chose him only because I think he has the highest win rate on Uller this year. I think Stuart has the most games on it, so we'll balance it out.
At least you're going to get played today.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you think this counts? Should I take you off the list? Does this count as being played?
No, it doesn't count.
You're on the broadcast. That's more than normal.
When I get buffed next patch, I'm going to come back with a vengeance. That's how I'm feeling at the very least. All right, let's start with what we see from the Jade Dragons, because this team has been really, really solid this year, but not as dominant as in years past, but in their setup against the Valhalla Valkyries, felt like they were able to take a step forward and look like that team that we expect coming into the playoff stages.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what they're going to bring out, specifically, since we're looking towards mid right now, what gods we're going to see. I was actually just looking at it, so Soul is wildly popular and something that you probably could have guessed just from looking at some of the past histories of the Dragons, but it's also the most played god Herwin's brought, but there was the Morrigan the other day, or yesterday as well. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And despite the fact that, we were talking about the nerfs that have come to some of the other more meta mid laners, we've seen enough changes that I don't know that they're too worried about it here. I just think that luckily, because Shinto's on the other side, we're also going to see a little bit of pressure on the mid roll. I don't think Soul's going to be, taken away at any time soon, so there's always the fallback for Hurry, but I'm curious to see what this matchup's going to be like, because I think there's a little more flexibility for both these players.
Always a lot of fun to see what the Dragons are going to be pulling out, especially up against a team with the pedigree of the Atlantis Leviathans. As you mentioned, the Soul has been a key pick for Herwin in the past. Just getting some of that pressure there in the mid lane seems to be what they like to play around, letting them be that little 2v2, 3v3 roaming playmaking style.
The other day we got to see Hells, Morgan Le Fay's, and things out of Shinto, so I think as long as you can get that down or you can deal with them, I know, when you start looking at Hell, if they go for another sustain comp like that, Merlin all of a sudden gets back into the conversation, I think it's going to be fun to see what kind of things we see pulled out in mid.
I think so too. This mid lane meta right now, not as much, well, not me, as we know. Yeah, not until next patch when maybe
Hurry's right there. You can try to convince him, lock eyes.
Maybe I can. Well, this is something that we've seen a lot over the years. It's Herwin getting dove by Kukulkan.
That's right. Kukulkan is here with Hurrywin. Susano's behind us, ganking us, I suppose. Hurrywin, what's the word here? Is our friend definitely not aggro, definitely Zeus getting any play here anytime soon? Or is broadcast all that he's got? He gets the desk and that's it. And he's not staring at you right now.
I would love to make him happy. We'll see if I can do that. He's a tough guy to please.
All right, look, I want to look back here. You played the Valhalla Valkyries already, and just because of the structure of Group A, feels like that's the team you guys need to beat. Do you feel like there's a bit of a weight off your shoulders? You've gotten the win, or do you're still gunning for that first seed spot moving into the Phase 3 playoffs?
Yeah, I think we're also not technically guaranteed because they could beat other teams as well. But yeah, beating the Leviathans would put us in a really good spot to get first seed, so, we're trying just as hard as we was.
Sorry, I don't know what to do with the spear yet.
Yeah, you're kind of.
I'm figuring.
You're giving
this
me
out
flashbacks.
I'm figuring this out as we go.
Back to now.
Kind of final thoughts. Zeus was talking about the mid lane meta a little bit. Do you feel like right now 8.10, it's kind of open? You feel like you need to work on your magical hunters, your regular hunters, your mages? Do you think there's a lot of viability in the mid lane right now?
Yeah, I think mid's pretty open as it's been most of the year. So all the mid laners have different god pools. So. You never know what people are going to play.
I'm excited about this matchup. I'm sure you are as well. We'll go back to Zeus and Uller on the desk to start off the set.
That Herwin guy, he's right. I'm a tough man to please, but Hurry, I believe in him. At least come next patch, we shall see. You heard him there talking about it. We saw Charybdis mid kind of dominate yesterday for the Scarabs, so it seems like that mid meta very, very wide open. Yeah. I think that really helps a player like Herwin, who has played a lot of different metas in his career and has a lot of different god pools.
We live in a world where I'm more likely to get into mid than you are.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, it's actually unequivocal in my mind. On the other side, Shinto, as you mentioned, Gore, this Hell pick starting to come back into the meta. That might not be everyone else's favorite, but certainly one of Shinto's. Morgan Le Fay. feel like the Leviathans are playing, we're always talking Shinto.
Yeah, and it's just because the way they strategize this is they've got two great frontliners. Like, you know they're going to get their job done, but at the end of the day, Shinto or Zap is getting a lot of kills. The other one's probably dying, but they enable the rest to really, really show up. I think it's funny because we have these Raijin highlights, 24-4 on this Raijin pick for Shinto all year, and it's been a great one, but it's been nerfed. This Tiamat's the one that's really caught my eye because this last few days, she's just kind of been missing.
Yeah.
We've seen her a couple of times. She still exists. She's still pretty good, as it turns out. But she's not necessarily the one god that everyone's striving for. She's not the must ban that she was or a must pick that we used to have. And so I think she floats in there just under the radar and might be something that we see either of these teams play.
I think so too. I mean, both Shinto and Heroine have played a good amount of Tiamat this year, so maybe a little bit more Shinto, but we know Hurry has in the god pool for sure. I think that overall also these junglers are going to be a big key.
Yeah.
Sam has been
That's
hot
the
and
biggest
cold so far this year. Panatom has been mostly hot. He's been really, really good for this Leviathan squad, and I think been a big difference maker for them.
And we saw a lot of focus on the Kamazats, I think, the other day for Panatom, like that survivability, what he was able to do and get to the backline. Like, you enabled a jungler who loves to sit on people in the backline and gave him gods that then can survive that as well. I think this is going to be a lot of pressure. I know, we've got a Susanoo running around. I wouldn't be surprised if that's picked up. Both of these junglers like to play Susanoo as well.
Yeah.
And depending on what kind of mid laners we're looking at, it could be an easy first blood to try and scoop up just based on the CC capabilities.
Yeah, Susanoo definitely could be seen more so than just on the broadcast as we're getting ready to get into game number 1. These two teams both feeling pretty good, sitting at 1-0 as Kakulin mentioned there. Beating the Valkyries is going to be your ticket to having a pretty good shot to moving on in this group if everything goes as expected. Okay, I've seen enough of Fight. Okay, let's get into picks and bans.
Wait, wasn't there... Yeah, we have a whole ad where he talks about giving up...
Listen, that was
it was only
time
for
ago.
Lint. It was for Lint anyway.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, okay? Things have changed. Fine OK is a different man now, and he is back to dabbing, apparently, is I guess where we are.
I can't blame him.
Dragons in that first pick position, and it's solo lane focus right away. Kakulin and Odin, and then Yamoja right after that.
This is where I learned how much I rely on God colors.
I know.
To know who it is.
It is big. This is it is difficult. And now Geb, I'll call him out all for you, Gormizer, just to be safe. Geb, the other band there for the Leviathans, and a Serket ban from the Jade Dragons, getting a little bit of double duty there with the support and jungle ban.
Yeah, something that's not crazy surprising given who they're playing up against. It's something that we've seen very successful for them. Actually, more out of Wrong U, I think, than we've seen out of the jungle.
Yeah.
But and that doubles down with the Yamoja, right? Like, if you're trying to cripple Wrong U, I think those are two really good picks. The problem is it's still Wrong U, and he's still phenomenal. And so it is going to be difficult, I think, to try and strip away some of those. But that does make the duo lane a little easier to deal with. Then we can maybe try to shift and pivot something in the jungle, right? When only the Serket ban. Panatom likes it, but it hasn't been necessarily the go-to. I wouldn't be surprised if the Leviathans are still focused on that Kamazats they were playing the other day. It was just a huge pick between them and the Kings. And it just looked really good. Panatom, like, the whole team looked good, but Panatom had some nuts games on that. And it seems like it might be an easy pickup for him.
One ban remaining here for the Leviathans. We will see what they decide to go for. It's been a lot of frontline focus from both of these teams, a lot of Guardians off the board. We've seen, Tiamat not be prioritized as much, so don't expect a ban there. RDO is up there.
Oh, wow.
And it is the Soul, taking that away from Heroine.
I'm going to be honest. Would not have expected that. If I'm looking at a lot of the other mid laners, like, it is, so by and far, Heroine's most played god. I think by 6 games above every other mid laner he's played this year, Soul is the one they typically go back to. But it does leave things open. I mean, the Morrigan has been a huge ban the last few days. Yep. A lot of these teams have been prioritizing taking her away. And Hurry doesn't necessarily instill the Morrigan fear in me, but it is something that I think you have to be aware of, especially given what we've seen in the frontline meta. It's dangerous to have her on board.
Well, you've got a Terra already there for PVM. Terra seems to be really rising in the ranks. The Warriors yesterday were prioritizing it over Geb, even, so you know that people are starting to feel like that god's really good. As Hell and RDO getting a lot of sustain right off the bat for the Leviathans.
This is dangerous territory. I will say, I mentioned Merlin earlier. I don't think he's necessarily great, but if I'm looking at a comp like this, like, my mind starts factoring what can I pick. Like, if I'm looking for a solo lane, Cerberus comes to my mind. If I'm looking for a mid laner that can do Divine Ruin, I'm starting to think of Merlin and maybe a few other ability-based gods that are going to be able to compete. I'm already trying to formulate what can we do to make their healing hurt, or what can we do to match that, right? Like, is going to bring in... I mean, at this point, with Yamoja gone, you're starting to get a little more limited. But, like, things, even like a Horus, right, where all of a sudden you're just going to have something to try and match it. It's not going to be the easiest. And this Hell was formidable the other day. And they not picked it, but bottom 2'd it, at least in the first game. They don't have the Cthulhu. They don't have necessarily the same, like, huge pillars. But Artio already is just such a devastating combo to have next to it. The team fights for the Leviathans, 22 minutes plus, are going to be very smooth.
Well, this is exactly what the Dragons did against the Valkyries. Pick Terra early, and then pick Gilgamesh early, because Gilgamesh ult and Terra ult just feel really good together. And it is a Guardian to go into the solo lane, but it's not Cerberus, it's Sobek instead.
And you know what? I like this. 50% anti-heal, you get yourself something already on board, plus one thing that Hell is lacking. Solax is too, but she's out of the conversation. Doesn't have a good disengage. If you get plucked, you're pulled back. Unless you cleanse yourself at like the perfect time, you are going to get grabbed here. So it's either beads, cleanse, or something better for the Dragons. So it opens up a lot of avenues to try and get free kills on Shinto on a regular cooldown as well. So it's going to make things a little easier. It just depends on the follow-up. And I think they still have a lot of wiggle room because mid lane, again, Herwind has 3 or 4 gods that they go to. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a Giannis ban that comes in, but like, you're not hurting too badly right now. I like what the Dragons have been able to do just in terms of keeping things vague.
They've got a lot going for them, as it's a Morrigan ban and then a Charybdis ban here by the Dragons, taking that away from Zapman as Charybdis continues to rise in prioritization. She is the only hunter on the board currently. Neither picked nor banned, or neither picked for either hunter, but this time around banned by the Jade Dragons. And you called it there, Uller. We got a Giannis ban taking that away from Hurry.
Yeah, that one just makes sense, right?
Yep.
If I'm thinking, man, Herwood still has gods to be picked, I am worried about him picking up and playing Giannis, even if it's not in meta. In fact, go back to last year, not in meta on the technically worst team in the league, still able to find as much, or I guess second to worst team in the league last year, still able to find wins just because of this Giannis play. And so it's something you have to be worried about. He's 10-2 on that. He's only lost 2 games. And so you have to control him in any avenue you get.
Hachiman the pick now for Zapman. Uller still on the board, but not locked in by the Leviathans Hunter. Could be the option for Panda Cat on the side of the Jade Dragons, but waiting to see what they're going to lock in for their backline. And this Oleron pick continues to be valued. It has been top 3 by a lot of teams, top picked overall.
Sylvanas, Oleron, like a lot of these picks that it was like Sylvanas maybe the last couple of weeks, but Oleron definitely the last couple of days. Widely popular, and yet I still forgot about him.
Yep. He still has that capability of turning the fight with that ultimate, and that ultimate pretty good up against Artio and Erlong Shen.
And the good news about it is, and this Hu Yi hover kind of makes me think it's probably a Heroine pick just because it's something like, I mean, both of these gods can technically flip to do whichever. Hu Yi's not as good a hunter in mid as maybe some of the others could do, but Oleron is going to be solid. He's going to be in these fights. He's going to be in the mid 3v3. Sanctified Fields, while I don't necessarily immediately think of, hey, he's good against anti-heal, he's definitely good at slowing Hell down and dealing with her early.
Definitely can do that, as it's Xing Chen locked in for Rongyu. This is not a god we see very often. Only 4 games played during this phase. This is not the traditional look, but an interesting way to kick off this best of 5.
Yeah, and I actually really like this just because Xing Chen, again, it's one thing you have to focus on the Furious Roar, and you're going to be seeing that leveled up, I imagine, the max as fast as you possibly can, because it gets up to 50% auto attack damage reduction, or just damage reduction in general, that you're going to be able to deal. Now, Oleron Hu Yi, if you get hit with that, if Rongyu is playing aggressively enough, that slows down a lot of their damage throughout the duration of the game. Early on, they still have some strengths here, but both of those gods scale much better into the late game. That means the Xing Chen should help deal with them a little bit better.
What do you think about this Jade Dragons comp with the Oleron and the Ho Yi? You know, they're going to be getting gunned down by this dive of the Artio Erlong. Do you think that they've got enough protection in order to live through it?
I think they've got enough peel to live through it, and just a sprinkling of healing in there to really help out. But if they, take one engagement from the Leviathans and live through it, good luck, because the problem is the Leviathans then back up, heal, and come back in again, right? It's not just withstanding the first onslaught, it's withstanding the second, the third, the fourth that continues going. That's where I think things are a little shaky. They need to win this first fight, those first engagements with the peel they have and the plucks they have, and then they can overwhelm them. But if this hell gets off to a good start, things might just be out of hand.
Should be a lot of fun in this debut game in the best of 5 between the Jade Dragons and the Atlantis Leviathans. It's time to let the heavens rage. We've got Kakulin and Susano to bring you the cast.
That's right, Kakulin and Susano on game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Atlantis Leviathans. Don't worry, color returns to your screen for in-game between these two top-seeded teams over in Group A, Mifflin. And what a brawl this is. The Jade Dragons have already gotten business taken care of up against the Valhalla Valkyries, and a win here against the Leviathans would all but seal a top seed moving into the Phase 3 playoffs.
Both of these teams have already taken one, so I think you're right to say that this one has a lot of stakes on the line. Some of the hardest players, or teams rather, in this group contending with one another. But the desk brings up some fair concerns for the late game of the Jade Dragons. Sure, you've got some late game ticking time bombs. Hurry win on this Ola run with Sanctified Field. You've got Terra that's going to completely run team fights come late as well. But the Leviathans have accrued themselves a incredibly annoying composition between all of their healing. Your core, great backline disruption as well as in-combat healing. And if you're out of combat, the healing job falls to Shinto, and I don't think you can do much better than a hell.
And something I asked Hurrywind in the pregame interview going into this matchup, do you feel like the mid lane is kind of open right now? Do you need to be prepared for the traditional mages, secure mages, magical hunters, regular hunters? And he said, yeah, I mean, it feels like it's been similar to that all year long. And I'll hold that thought as Polar Bear Mike ganked by Panatom. He will dash away with the pin there on the other end. And not much damage finds its way into Mike. If anything, Panda Cat found more returning onto Panatom. Shinto jumped on by Sanford Soccer. But the Tier 1 tower brings itself some safety for the Leviathans mid laner. So we're already seeing some activity out of Panatom, already some activity out of Sanford Soccer, and that's what you want to see with these two picks.
Yeah, when you're playing Erlang Shen, when you're playing Warriors in the jungle generally, Erlang Shen I would count amongst that play style. You kind of need to get involved early on. Gilgamesh does have decent scaling in this game, as does Erlang Shen, considering, as Aggro highlighted, Gilgamesh plus Terra is just free Earthern Fury every single time. Great space control. Panatom, though, I think going down that Bumbosphere path does a lot.
Shinto had his bead burnt a moment ago, and in return, Sanford Soccer comes back to the mid lane. It's first blood to the Jade Dragons, and Shinto now in the course of a couple of minutes has been sat on by Sanford Soccer.
So Shinto in some serious trouble for just about the rest of this game, I suppose. Already falling behind an Ola run in the early game when you've got an aggressive jungler to back him up. Shinto's going to have a target on his back for at least another 100 seconds while he waits for those beads.
Polar Bear Mike invading into the purple buff, drops it down, but is he going to pay for it with his life? Rongyu and Zapman sure would like to. The body block at the end of it, and Mike steals the purple. But the Leviathans steal his life, and so we are tied up in the kill department. We have seen a little bit of this.
Is this allowed?
So far this weekend. Speed buff invades early in the game. Drop kick from Sanford Soccer against Panatom. And Panatom was able to steal that away as well. We have speed buffs being taken, purple buffs being taken, and these two teams are at each other's throat.
Panatom wisely holds on to the transform, realizing if he uses that, it's a pretty easy rotation for Hurwin to walk over with Sanctified Field and shut him down, so just steals it standard with the auto attacks. That said, despite taking away that speed buff, it's going to take a little while for Panatom to catch up and farm, so it's a lot of time walking all the way from his side of the map to Sanford Soccer's speed buff, so he passes up a lot of his own farm. Desyncing his own jungle, though, when you're going for invades, feels pretty good. Now Sanford Soccer, kind of off the beaten path, has to work hard.
This is an immediate 1v1, but it's about to be a 2v1. Can Panda Cat get the kill before Rongyu is here? Yes, he can. 1v1 to Panda Cat, and he might win this trade as well. And the aggressive play pays off in the duo lane. Panda Cat gets himself a solo over Zapman, and we'll find a little damage on Rongyu at the end of it.
I wonder if maybe PBM just decides, I'll leave lane, Panda Cat takes the 5 first, takes that 1v1, and it works out exactly like that. PBM has sacrificed a good deal of his own farm, though, just now ticking over to 4, matching up against Rongyu, but completely worth when your ADC is able to find a solo kill this early on, especially going for a non-aggressive build. Looks like it's going to be the Devourer's Gauntlets in that first slot. That's a great start for your Ho Yi.
Able to go back and fully complete it now is Panda Cat, and you'll be able to get that one stacking in lane. The Jade Dragons have come to play. That kill, though, only evens up the goal. The Leviathans maybe just a bit ahead prior to that, and the Jade Dragons able to pull a few few hundred gold in the lead after the fact. Hurrywind in the mid lane here, Miff. Overrun has been the topic of conversation throughout this weekend, whether it be mid lane or over in the duo lane. hi-rez piece is going to be the starter item here for Hurrywind. Get some good lifesteal for himself, spread it out to his team.
Yeah, I wonder why he goes for the hi-rez so early on. You want that attack speed so you can start finding some of those crits, but instead, I guess lifesteal survivability feels pretty nice here. You're going to be able to utilize your wave clear, full heal almost every single time, mashes well with the sustain you've got built into your kit. Maybe just concerned about empowering his team, as you highlighted. hi-rez piece is going to help out just about everyone on his side. Sanford Soccer, an avid auto attacker on Gilgamesh, going to benefit mightily from this pickup, but it's sacrificing a little bit of his own early scaling. I wonder how he transitions the rest of this build. Maybe a ring in this next slot, or it could just be an ability-based Oleron.
Yep. Keep your eyes on Hurrywind, and we will as well, as this build continues to build up through the game. We've taken a deep breath after what felt like constant fighting in the first 5 or so minutes of this game. Both teams return back to some fighting. The next rotations of those buffs come off of cooldown, and neither team looking to invade one or the other. And so both will return back to their own sides of the map. And I think Oleron, an important conversation, of course around the build, which you've already talked a little bit about for Hurrywind, but then some of the counterplay that we've seen around Oleron. Cthulhu maybe stands at the forefront of that conversation with his ultimate. But with PBM being jumped on here, I'll have to delay unless Wrongyu wants to throw his ult there. It looks like this is disengaged. But Hell has been a conversation piece around counters. Wrongyu with the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel with the CC immunity in his ultimate. Zapman as well with the mounted archery. So there are some counterplay options here for the Leviathans.
There are, and it's going to come down a lot to Shinto to make sure that the players on the Leviathans that don't have inherent counterplay can survive these engagements. Panatom and Yarkor, when caught in Sanctified Field, just stay there. They're just stuck. There's no way for them to deal with it, barring a beads or maybe a cleanse from Shinto. So the Leviathan's got to play heads up in the team fight. That means, though, Hurrywind has some key targets that he can look towards. Maybe not idyllic to try and solo Yarkor in a team fight, to dedicate your ultimate to that, but it's a decent target for him.
Panatom is invading the jungle here, but there are 3 members of the Dragons awaiting in the wings. It's a 3-man, 9 turns blessing, and the heal pops through, but there is not a lot of healing. Sanford Soccer able to capitalize on that kill, but Panatom, has he done enough? Yes, he has, at least for Wrongyu to return a kill. It's a 1-for-1 trade on the invade, but that's a good pluck from Fino.
Wrongyu still hovering around. Hurrywind holds onto the Sanctified Field, realizing Wrongyu still had that leap available, and that should spell the end of this engagement. Aggression from the Leviathans continually on the Jade Dragons side of the map. Panatom just peeking his head around corners, seeing if he can maybe steal some back camps or annoy Sanford Soccer while he's there. And the Leviathans have decided to play around that. Generally, it's a facilitate Shinto style of gameplay for the Leviathans. Here it's, Panatom, what do you want to do? We're here for you.
So the Jade Dragons able to answer Panatom's early aggression in this game. Panatom has already stolen away a speed buff. Shinto able to cleanse himself. So holds on to the beads here. It looks like Hurrywind will go into the Stone of Thalm next. It's been a popular item amongst the magical hunters we've seen so far this weekend. And so, no surprise there. Can Pandacat do it again? That's the question. Puts the mark onto Zapman here, but this time Panatom and Wrongyu closing the gap would be far from a 1v1 for Pandacat. Does he realize it, though, is the next question. Not quick enough. If he did, ultimate down, the leap is down as well. Wrongyu has his ultimate, but he's got the root, and he will hold on to the ult. 3 versus 1 on left, but Mike dashes on through. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel will counter out the stun. And Mike walks in for the re-engage, but it's a clean kill and out for the Leviathans on left.
Slow rotation from Sam and Hurrywind there. Gotta think there could have been an opportunity to try and strip some of those kills back. Pandacat plays that about as well as you could hope. Tries to find the stun on a Wrongyu, does actually find the stun inside the tower. Drops him down to just below half HP, holds onto his beads as well. So Hoyi, although falling, does maintain a decent lead in the lane. Zapman dedicating his own ultimate means that when Pandacat rotates back in, maybe finds a solo kill. There's a good opportunity here.
Could be there for Pandacat once that ultimate comes back up. Devour's Gauntlet into Wind Demon is the option for Pandacat, whereas Zapman sticking with something a little bit more standard from what we've seen here recently. Pathing a little awkward for Hurrywind there, nearly caught by Wrongyu, but looks like Crusher into, I think Aussie has been the popular next item after the Crusher there. Maybe that's what Zapman ends up going for. We'll be able to check in a little bit later. But early in this game, if both teams, and specifically both junglers, I think the important topic, have shown that they want to fight, then Hurrywind is the next one that's learning that the hard way. You've used your beads, you've used your ult, but What does it matter when the kill has already come out? It's Shinto who grabs it. Now Sanford Soccer wins of Shamash, re-engages. Panatom slowed down, K over from the solo lane, and yet again, we have a kill get traded out. The first to the Leviathans, the answer to the Dragons.
Almost a major misplay from Hurrywin, dedicating all of his long CDs, Relic and Ultimate, at the tail end of his life, but holds them in place just long enough for Sanford Soccer to rotate his way in, and with the help of PBM, able to at least shut down Panatom one more time. Despite being 1-1-2 on the Gilgamesh, this 0-2-3 Erlang Shen has remained even to slightly ahead throughout this game so far. One of these guys going for a full damage build, Sanford Soccer going all the way through that Mace tree, whereas on the other end, Panatom getting a little bit more utility. That slow immunity from Wingblade is going to go a long way up against the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, that's a good point. That'll help out in this game. But the point I was trying to make before the fight happens, Myth, is it feels like both junglers have been nice and active early in this game. Especially some of the games that we've seen this weekend. You know, one jungler's been active. We've seen some others shy away. It feels like both Sam and Panatom are just trying to keep pace with one another right now. Panatom's put some pressure on left, some in mid. Sam has been able to answer the call. It's been a nice game of tug of war, honestly, out of the jungle. And it's resulted in a mostly even game. 500-600 gold is all that separates us here. This time, Sam over to left. Mike is here as well. This has been happening to PandaCat. But Zapman, I think, playing a little too safe for the Dragons to capitalize.
He's got beads, he's got Aegis, and he's playing Hachiman. There's no way that the Jade Dragons are going to kill him right here. Maybe force off some of those defensive relics, maybe force out that ultimate and try and rotate back in a little bit later. But the Leviathans, maybe realizing this rotation on the left-hand side, say, all right, Pyromancer's open, let's go.
Mike is close by, and it's slowly burning. Mike dashes through. Pyromancer reset. Mike body blocking the Leviathans, steal it. Or take it, rather. Mike tried to steal it, and that was close. A bit of a coin flip by the end of it, but the Leviathans have weighted that coin for themselves, and they will get the first neutral objective of the game, and the nice gold spike that comes with.
Good attempt from PBM. It seemed like the Leviathans were willing to fully reset, but PBM holds onto the aggro, and the Leviathans strip that one away as Rongyu goes in hard.
Hurrywin does not have feeds for 20 seconds. He is tossed and taunted right on the back end of the fight. Sanctified Field will separate us out. Look, Rongyu and Shito, they're running the opposite way of their jungler. And that is a free kill over to the Jade Dragons, except for the ultimates that you had to spend. And that was Panatom, again, staying active, looking for a kill on the end of Rongyu's engage. And the Jade Dragons are able to answer.
It felt like Rongyu just went in a little bit too early. That was a dedicated call from the Leviathans to take that fight. Zapman had been making the rotation for a while, nearly gets there in time, but Rongyu a little bit too trigger happy with that ultimate engage. Does sacrifice his jungler, Panatom. And the Leviathans, they can't be doing that this early on, especially with as tight as this game has been. We're starting to see a little bit of separation in favor of the Leviathans. 700 or so gold, 600 or so experience, mainly off of just macro play. It's not kills. Jade Dragons up 1.
Now, between these two teams, that feels like even. Small amounts of gold, important of course, but that has not slowed down the Jade Dragons on their answers here so far in this game. Final K has been really on point with his rotations out of solo. Feels like the communication myth, but for this Jade Dragons team has really been there. You know, it's Hurrywin getting jumped on. Final K sensing that pressure has been able to rotate into the mid, affecting 3 out of the 5 kills here so far, and even flipping around some of these fights. So early, the Sobek maybe has had more relative impact than Hardcore on this RDO. Whether that holds up into the team fight phase remains to be seen.
Yeah, Sobek brings similar pressure as an RDO in the late game. You're still a great backline disruption tool, but you're not healing your team. You're not constantly putting out cripple fields, stuns as well. It's more so a difference of style, whereas Yarkor would like to go into the team fight and just sit in your backline and say, all right, fight me, and the rest of my team is going to kill your team. Whereas Final K wants to get to the team fight and say, I'm going to land a pluck, just one, and whoever I pluck needs to die. It's a slight difference in how they're approaching these engagements. So far, though, Final K getting involved a little bit more so.
And Sobek will build up in tankiness as this game goes on. Gold Fury stands. Pyromancer was quietly, except for Polar Bear Mike poking his head around the corner, taken by the Leviathans. It's been the first and only neutral objective to go down so far here in this game. And sometimes at this point in the game, you know, one of the hunters has a big lead, 1 level, 2 levels, maybe half an item or so. Not so much the case here in game 1 of this best of 5, where PandaCat and Zapman, despite a solo kill from PandaCat, Zapman's been able to answer with some help from Panatom and from Rongyu. And so the left side of the map feels pretty even. Maybe that's why we see both teams playing a little bit more cautious around this Gold Fury. Feels like it'd be a very close fight and tough to call.
Yeah, whichever ADC gets the better end of these engagements is likely going to net themselves the neutral objective as well. Zatman has been slightly ahead in farm thanks to his secondary kill, but as far as objective shred goes, the difference in these two builds means that Pandacat likely going to get the better end of it. Just having crit up against Gold Fury, Pyromancer, Fire Giant means that your DPS is just that much better. Whereas Zatman, he's got decent tank shred. If anyone like Sanford Soccer or FinoK tries to isolate him with Aussie, with Crusher, and what could be a Kinsize or an Executioner up next, he's going to make short work of the front line of the Jade Dragons.
That's right, Zatman positioning himself to shred the Jade Dragons down. The Jade Dragons positioning themselves to shred down an objective, potentially. Oracles, at least, will get secured here. Gold Fury poked out a couple of times by Pandacat, but that's a swift answer from the Leviathans, and that's, a small moment. It's not a full pull from the Jade Dragons, but how quick that was for the Leviathans to realize, all right, something's up here, something's going wrong. Well, they do have a ward down, or did have a ward down, so it was pretty obvious the entire time. But good answer from the Leviathans. Now, though, it's going to force Wrongu to head on over, clear a ward of his own, just to make sure nothing funny happens around this Gold Fury.
The vision battle so far this game has been ludicrous. There's been so many wards hovering this left-hand side of the map, and they're still there, by the way. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wards dropped by the Leviathans just around the duo lane. If Sanford Soccer wants any opportunity to show up and slow down Zatman, he's going to have to work hard, or he's going to have to work his way all the way around like a tier 2 tower. The Leviathans doing a great job of keeping this Hachiman safe.
That's right. The right side of the map, on the other hand, Myth, is desolate. The last ward that was over there just timed out. There's no vision on right. All of it's on left. Of course, the Gold Fury is up. The Pyromancer is about to be up, but it is not currently there. And so a difference in objective priority. Though it does keep the left side of the map safe. Sanford Soccer is over here on left. Leviathans, remember, pull and secure the last Pyromancer pretty quietly. And if Zatman had been spotted out, maybe you imagine the Leviathans go for something similar, but instead FinoK being walked at by Panatom, Toxic Blade, Crusher. They'll be doing some work against the health bar of Fino. But this Sobek Myth, Bulwark, Stone of Gaia, a little extra healing in there. Very difficult to gank and kill. Easier objective is probably the Pyromancer at this point, and yet again, it's only PBM who's in range for the steal this time, but there is great CC onto Mike, but it is a reset for the Leviathans. Don't want to risk it now that Fino's here.
And Fino is incredibly tanky, so he's allowed to just face check any objective that he wants. Speaking of the lack of vision on the right-hand side, could be a byproduct of the fact that RDO and Sobek are nigh unkillable at this point of the game. You don't really have to concern yourself with who's coming over, because once they get there, you just heal off of them. Maybe walk back to your tower, utilize the CC immunity of lurking in the waters, or just the infinite survivability of a RDO with beads. Leviathans and Jade Dragons content to leave their soul laners to their own devices. Pyromancer, though, being looked at yet again by Panatom. Erlang Shen's got that kind of burn potential, but with hovering this much around the objective, he's allowed Sanford Soccer to establish a small lead.
I do want to catch back up with Hurriwin's build here, Myth, because he has gone Pythag's piece into Stone of Fel and then Typhon's Fang afterwards. At this point, right, you're more used to seeing rings, something like that, somewhere in the build. Looks like more mage lifesteal style is what Hurriwin's looking for.
With Stone of Fall and Mannequins, you're still going to be utilizing your auto attacks to a fair extent, but his ability damage is going to be very nice. The survivability as well means that even if Panatom isolates Hurriwin in the backline, which is generally the ideal situation for a jungler up against Oleron, Oleron might just win the fight. If he's heads up with the knockup, he might just be able to stop Panatom on the engage. I'm curious to see it. I'd love to see that fight happen at some point this game.
I imagine we will. But one thing Aggro has talked about, Myth, is the later prioritization of penetration in some of these mid laner builds. Now, with Typhon's Fang, Hurriwin gets a nice 10% there for himself, but Shinto still lacking a little bit of that through his build. You know, he'll be able to do some decent damage on this Hell. But it feels like utility, lifesteal, team sustain seems to be the mindset here for both of these mid laners. That said, Chronos Pendant, even Lotus Crown, Ethereal Staff, what looks like a Soul Reaver after that, still will do some chunky damage for Shinto.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the mid laners in the SPL don't really regard percent penetration as something they're overly concerned with. Instead, they like to make up the bulk of their damage from the passives of these items. Ethereal Staff, percentage HP, Soul Reaver, the exact same thing. Soul Gem gives you a great boost to your survivability. And in a game like this, where you can kind of just say, we're probably going late. It's a fair assumption to say that this is going to go to a very late game team fight that decides it. You don't need that penetration super early on. So I think I can agree with the build allocation so far from both of these mid laners. And I get to disagree with Aggro on the same note, which is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's perfect, and especially it's Zeus today, especially since Zeus isn't around to defend himself and clarify that point any further. It's free pickings for you there, Susano. Gold Fury still stands 20 minutes into this game. I think I've called you Mifflin one too many times this game. We got to really get back into
I'm not going to call you Kakalin.
Why?
Because it's distracting, man.
What's
it's a god name.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing about we can't have god names in team names in competitive Smite, and we also can't have player names in team names. We gotta stay consistent. We can't have caster names be god names.
You can call me Kakalin as long as there's not one in game. We are fighting in the mid lane. Jump in from Sanford Sakura. Shinto will use both actives. The drop kick timed out perfectly, but Shinto will live just a little bit longer than the Jade Dragons had hoped for, so the re-engage is here from the Leviathan. Sanctified Field separates out the fight, but Panatom finds the autos onto Sanford Sakura. This is massive from Panicat. It's a disengage now from the Leviathans as the ultimate. The Suns,
wow.
The Ice Shards, they rain through.
See ya.
Big block from Fine OK, and Zapman, his death makes a difference.
Those large AoE ultimates from the Jade Dragons were massive. Sanctified Field gets full value. I'm pretty sure Rongyu played inside of it for the entirety of that cooldown, and then Pandacat rotates in, finds a four-man Raining Suns.
Oh, that feels good.
And the Jade Dragons still were only able to barely come out ahead in that engagement. Is that not wild how survivable the Leviathans were and fighting into those terrible odds? Still nearly match up in damage output, 9,000 to the 10,000 of the Jade Dragons. With those thin margins, that small win in the mid lane not only took out a tier 1 mid tower, but also the Gold Fury. Leviathans, though, they're not going to let it go down for free. Pyromancer seems to be the answer.
The Gold Fury is the difference maker in the gold right now. Poor man Mike has been a nuisance around the Pyro so far. He's forcing a delay out of the Leviathans. Yeah, it'd be hard-pressed to find a world where Mike steals it, but at least makes the Leviathans think twice. So it was a 1,000 or so gold lead for the Leviathans a little bit ago. Fight, 1 kill difference, plus Gold Fury now gets the Jade Dragons about 1,000 gold in the lead of the Leviathans. Still Myth balancing on a knife edge.
Dave, I just got to gush over the small mechanical play we just saw from the Leviathans. The reset from Rongyu to Panatom to crush the clap from Terra. Yep. So cool to utilize Pyromancer that way, but maybe even cooler is how quickly this Fire Giant is burning.
It's going quickly. Hardcore is close.
Leviathans!
Oh my god, they steal it away from under the nose of the Jade Dragons. Looks like Rongyu's the one who's got it done in the roar.
That can't happen.
Steals it. That is unbelievable. With everything the Jade Dragons have, the Leviathans walk in. Rongyu walks in and steals away the Fire Giant, and that would have been massive with how close this game is. The Jade Dragons getting that Fire Giant might have sent us towards the late game, towards the end of this game, and the Leviathans now have it for themselves.
It's true on the other end as well. The Leviathans have got so much gold now to collect on the map. Tier 1 towers, don't expect a defense from the Jade Dragons. Tier 2s, maybe we see something soft, a soft defense, but considering how valuable the ultimates are from the Jade Dragons, it's going to be hard-pressed to put up a defense there.
I mean,
that can't happen, bro.
Blink 1. Yeah, baby, that's the only secure you need. Blink 1 from a Xing Chen. I'll take that to go, please. Say the Atlantis Leviathans, and suddenly this game is flipped around yet again. Everything, trades, fights, objectives, neutral objectives, steals. It's all been so close in game 1 between the Dragons and the Leviathans. But the Dragons,
good fight.
They want to fight. Safer Soccer jumps in.
Nice shot.
From range, using some of that ability damage to put down Panatom. One of those FG buffs is now stripped away. Keep your eyes on Sanctified Field. Still maybe the biggest ultimate on the map.
It is, and it's still available. PBM goes in, but too far, loses his life.
He goes in and he dies. He's watching in black and white as the rest of the Jade Dragons walk forward. Pandacat gets the job done on the back end of the fight. Hurrywood getting it done on the front. And now it's a 3 versus 1 against Hardcore, but Hardcore's got to double this Ardio obnoxious and he is dealing the damage to the Jade Dragons, the healing enough to walk him away from the tier 2 tower. Hurrywind just waiting for those cooldowns, and Hurrywind will put hardcore down once more. Jade Dragons find a big fight.
The Leviathans overconfident in their ability to push into that tier 2 tower. It was a 4 versus 5 for the Leviathans because Yarkor was hovering on the right-hand side of the map, and this Ardio is one of your best disruption tools to stop the artillery strike that is a Ho Yi and an Oleron. That hubris not only cost them their Fire Giant push, but also their Phoenix. The Jade Dragons, without the Fire Giant, essentially make the exact same play, stripping away all these towers and a bird.
What a call from the Jade Dragons. You're thinking the Leviathans, they've got all this map state to play with. They can take the tier 1s, maybe a defense on a tier 2. Jade Dragons want to give up nothing, and they fight big. Zapman is the only one who keeps the Fire Giant buff around his waist. And I imagine it'll stay that way for the next minute and 15 seconds. These teams probably happy to slow things down. The Jade Dragons get the big payoff. They didn't have the Fire Giant, but they might as well have with the way that push worked out in a big team fight for the Jade Dragons. That Myth, there's been a little pushback, specifically under the mid-tier 1 tower, a fight earlier in the game that felt very close despite some great ultimates from the Dragons. That was the opposite. That was the ultimates finding pretty good value from the Dragons, but there wasn't an answer to the Sanctified Field. There wasn't an answer to Panda Cat's big damage at this point in this game. He's kind of diversified. Look at Panda Cat. He's gone Wind Demon, Xe, Kin Size, and Shadow Steel Shuriken, so he's got some crit and some tank shred. This Ho Yi at 2-1 and 3, despite 9,500 damage, is going to play a big role by the end of this game. And look at this positioning from both teams. Tier 1 tower on left taken down by the Dragons. The Leviathans seem to be grouping and should confirm the tier 2 in mid.
Seems to be a fundamental disagreement on the pace of this game. The Leviathans think they're in a position to keep pushing, and the Jade Dragons tend to think the same of themselves, and they've got an exposed Phoenix for a good while here.
Fino and Zapman are dueling it out in the mid lane. If Fino can stop the back, it'll be a Hunter advantage here on the left side. That said, Fino K, I'm not sure you win this fight against Zapman. Are you going to turn back and stop it again? Or are you just going to be annoying? Hurrywind, Sanctified Field down. Sanford Soccer blinks forward. Winds of Shamash separates things out as well. And that's a good magnifying glass Myth at the no-play zones that the Jade Dragons have. You channel those two ultimates together, and it is difficult. That's a nice drop kick from Sanford Soccer, and there's some damage from Hurrywind to repel Hardcore on his engagement into the front of the fight.
And we saw the Jade Dragons, once they realized Sanctified Field wasn't massive there, they weren't able to utilize it fully. They say, okay, maybe we just don't fight now. But given that scenario, Leviathans can push into the Primal.
What is Fino K looking for? He blinked in, tail whipped. It's an Earthen Fury down from Mike, and that'll find some value for the Jade Dragons as the Leviathans repelled from the Fury. But Polar Bear Mike, he's stuck around. He's low. Shinto, he's got the last bit of damage on the front of this fight. And look at the surge forward. Leviathans as 5 walking in, and they will get 2 at least from the Jade Dragons, but there's big damage from Panda Cat around the corner. The crits ringing out have melted the health bars of these frontliners. Sanford Soccer will find some auto attacks. Double kill from Rongyu, but it looks like Hurrywind's got one as well on the back end of this fight, and it's going to be Panda Cat who's got to go big.
Yarkor with less than 200 HP says, I don't need it, I'm going in anyway, and he gets the kill on a Sanford Soccer. Panda Cat now the only dragon still standing, and not much that he can do. So surprised to see the Jade Dragons, having already used Winds of Shamash and Sanctified Field on a botched engagement, decide to show up and fight over a Primal Fury 27 minutes into this game. You've already got overwhelming map state advantage having stripped away the mid-Phoenix. Fire Giant was spawning so shortly that this engagement really was unnecessary, and the Leviathans, when they see unnecessary plays, they punish them. And now they've got so much advantage going into the fire. 20 seconds left on Sam, 10 seconds on Hurry. Fine's not even respawned yet. This fire's going to go fast.
Fire Giant is melting. Not as quick as the Leviathans would like. There's plenty of time for Mike and Panda Cat to get into range. We've already seen one steal this game. Will we see another? Panda does not have his ultimate yet. You got to look at that cooldown. That might be the secure here for the Jade Dragon. Still does not have it. And the Leviathans will take down the fire relatively easily, and they will get Polar Bear Mike as a to-go order here as well. Lurking in the water is fine, okay? And out he will lurk from the FG pit. This one much cleaner for the Leviathans.
Now with Fire Giant on 5, the Leviathans can try yet again to make the same siege happen. Last time they were crushed by the Jade Dragons. I think that the Dragons have decent opportunity to do the exact same thing yet again, but I doubt the Leviathans give them a 4 versus 5 engagement. Now, it's a Tier 2 tower that they've grouped up on. 20 seconds left on PBM's respawn, and every single one of the Leviathans is healthy, and just about every ultimate is available, barring Wrong You. Ank's still up, the majority of your beads are up, Yarkor's coming up in 3 seconds. The Leviathans are at full fighting strength, but they don't want to approach the Phoenix just yet. They've got some gold in hand, and some work to be done elsewhere on the map. It's going to be a reset this time around. The Jade Dragons only have 2 towers still standing.
I don't know, Miff. I hesitate to give either team, even with everyone with FG buff, any sort of big advantage, just in this game specifically. Normally this is a done deal. The Leviathans feeling comfortable. We're going to push down some towers, push a Phoenix, end the game. The way that game 1 has gone between these two teams, I'm not ruling anything out. There could be a full deicide for the Jade Dragons in the next 5 seconds, and I wouldn't be surprised just because of how close game 1 has been here. And it really feels like the ebbs and flows, the wins for the Jade Dragons is when, to your point, Miff, they can combine Winds of Shamash and the Sanctified Field well together. And then you think about, well, Panda Cat's got his ultimate. He can layer on top of that as well. It's kind of establishing this zone that the Leviathans can't fight. And so then maybe the counterpoint or the counterplay for the Leviathans is if we can make those ultimates whiff, we're feeling comfortable in our ability to win the game.
If you're surviving Sanctified Field, the Leviathans have essentially already dealt with 40% of what the Jade Dragons' fighting strength is, in my mind. Sure, you still have the ultimate combos of PBM and Sanford Soccer, or even PBM and Panda Cat, both Hou-Yi and Gilgamesh, very adept at proccing that Earthern Fury, but Sanctified Field is the reason you drafted Oleron. It's not for the auto attacks, it's not for the sustain, it generally is just how strong that ultimate is in a team fight, and the Jade Dragons, when they use it well, they win the team fight.
We are 30 minutes into game 1 between the Dragons and the Leviathans, live in studio on Halloween Sunday. Could this be the final push that ends the game? We have got a lot of action to go between these two teams, especially if this best-of-5 set carries on as game 1 has. Here's Wrong You. He's found the back line. He's found Hurrywin, but there's good peel out on the front line from Final K. Wrong You left alone, and some damage finds its way in. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel gets nothing. As Hardcore will walk away, the cleanse from Shinto saved his life there. Pin onto Final K. Poking and prodding happening, Miff, but no big pick.
Sanford Soccer hovering around the side, just waiting for PBM to find an Earthern Fury. That Terra ult is going to be the go button. Then, if the Jade Dragons are able to force a disengage, it opens up the door for a massive Sanctified Field.
Pin onto Panda Cat, but look at the frontline engage from the Jade Dragons, and it's an immediate disengage from the Atlantis Leviathans. That is a low commit moment. Zapman uses his ult, Panda Cat uses his, Final K's is down as well, but you still got the big ones for the Jade Dragons.
It's Winds of Shamash and Sanctified Field. That's all they've got left in the tank, but this Phoenix stays standing. It's burned down. Now just about 40% HP. The Leviathans have been working slowly, and that slow pace may cost them. Only 30 seconds left on fire.
Uh-oh, Hurrywin. Sanctified Field is down, and it is on Hardcore and Hardcore alone. The rest of the Leviathans able to get back. And again, the Dragons layer these two massive ultimates and don't find the maximum value out of it. That said, if your objective is to burn time, you've done that. Half HP still on your Phoenix, 10 seconds remaining on this FG buff. One final look at a push here for the Atlantis Leviathans with their Fire Giant buff, should they look for it. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel is back up. Fire Giant wears off, and the Leviathans will wear off the base of the Dragons as well. Dragons stand strong. They don't lose much, except for a couple towers. All 3 Phoenixes alive after the FG of the Leviathans.
That was one of the most impressive and effective Phoenix defenses I've ever seen. The staggering of the ultimates from the Jade Dragons to keep the Leviathans at bay for so long maintains their base's full strength. Because that Phoenix doesn't fall, it will eventually regen all the way back to full HP. That's crazy stuff from the Jade Dragons. They desync immediately. We saw, what was it? PBM's ultimate, Earthen Fury, to start the fight. Panda Cat uses his own to proc all of them. A little bit later on, it's Winds of Shamash and Sanctified Field to buy a little bit more time. But that's not to take away from some of the small mechanical plays we saw from the Leviathans as well. Shito's cleanses, I think, stuffed at least 3 of Final K's plucks onto priority targets. The first one on Wrong You, Zapman as well. Both of these teams are firing on all cylinders right now. It is crazy watching them and how back and forth this battle has been.
This feels like end-of-year Smite, doesn't it? Feels like tournament Smite going on between the Jade Dragons and the Leviathans. Might as well be. These group stages so important at setting up for success later on in the year. Phase 3 playoffs for the top 3 teams in both of these groups. top 2 teams from the Phase 3 playoffs go to the World semifinals, so of course you want good seeding. I mean, all of it is on the line. And so you might as well start your tournament smite right now. And the Jade Dragons, the Leviathans, they agree. We are tied up in kills. Goal differential is important here, Miff. 10,000 in the lead are the Atlantis Leviathans. But it doesn't feel like a 10,000 gold lead, at least from what we just saw the Jade Dragons put up under their Phoenix.
Yeah, gold is slowly becoming negligible as we're going 35 minutes into this game. It's generally supports that are trying to finish off their build. Sanford Soccer rapidly approaching his true 6th slot as well. So it's a Fire Giant defense from the Jade Dragons. Yarkor in first, isolating Finoke, but he takes more damage.
Yeah, I want to leave, says Hardcore on his way on out of the fight. Enhanced Fire Giant is what we've got, Jade Dragons. We will not let this one go easily. Haven't seen a jungle fight in a little bit of time. It's been a lot of skirmishing under towers, under phoenixes. That's where we've seen Hurrywind and Sanford Soccer layer their ultimates just a little bit. And so maybe in the jungle, the Dragons are able to find more effectiveness. That said, you're grouped up, maybe a cleanse from Shinto is able to hit its value a little bit stronger as well. Look out for a pluck from Finoke. It's really been both Finoke walking forward, whether it's a blink or a dash in. Of course, you want to use it to pluck. On the other side, it's been Rongyu who's blinked in, looked for Whirlwinds of Rages. Whirlwinds of Rage and Steals. Zatman is not here. He's not in this fight. Zatman is on this red buff. Do the Jade Dragons realize it, though? Zatman is going to rotate in behind this engagement, or will he? He pivots over to the left, and all the Leviathans are doing is delaying this out. Zatman strolling through the jungle. He's going to his own red buff, the Scorpion, something like that. He will rotate the other direction around behind his own team here. And it does not pay off one way or another. Zatman will rejoin the rest of his team, but the Fire Giant is taken down beneath half HP. 420 crits on the Fire Giant. That's enough to give the Jade Dragons the enhanced Fire Giant. But the Leviathans have found the re-engage. Lots of roots on the back end here, but can the Leviathans get the damage on in? Hardcore taken down by Sanford Soccer. Hurrywind falls in trade. Sam is stunned. Sam is jumping. Sam lives on. Rongyu's got something else in mind, and Zatman, he joins the fight late, but it's right on time according to his clock. Double kill for the Hunter.
Zatman takes the scenic route, but makes it look good too, and maybe 3. Finoke does fall, but Cheeto takes this one. 4 members of the Leviathan still standing, but PBM and Panda Cat, the duo lane of the Jade Dragons, might be able to keep this game alive.
They have the enhanced Fire Giant, the Jade Dragons. They've got it around their waist. The Leviathan's not playing with it. Mike does not have his ult. Panda Cat does not either. This is going to be telling. What do the Leviathans do after this Phoenix? Walk forward is the answer. You've got 3 members dead on the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat has been doing serious damage numbers as this game has gone on. Mike, no, you can't die here, my friend.
Dash.
You need to stay alive to give your team a chance, but Zatman says no thank you. He wags his finger in Mike's face, and now Panda Cat's going to have to make the play of his career to keep game number 1 on the line, and he is put in the dirt. The Leviathans in 37 minutes take game 1.
All that off the back of 1 Fire Giant steal, 1 ferocious roar. The roar heard around the world from Rongyu. Steals the Fire Giant, extends the game, and the Leviathans win.
What a game 1 we had here, huh, Susano?
Come on, man. It was so hype. Don't do this now.
I think when we don't have a Kokoan or a Susano in the game, we can stick with it. But you're right, this is hype. That's my fault. I undercut it a little bit here. The Leviathans and the Dragons, so much on the line between these two teams. And this is what you hope. This is what you hope for. When you get the Leviathans, you get the Dragons, you get them in studio, you get them in an important smite game. You get a matchup here in game 1 that had a little bit of everything.
We do. And Dave, good news, man.
Who's that?
It's a Kakulin, great news, man. It's a best of 5 set. I think this one has the makings of a full 5.
Let's hope so. Game number 1 is in the books.
Okay.
Game
I'm
number 2,
take it away from you.
Right after this.
Unfortunate.
Welcome back, SMITE fans. An incredible Game 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Atlantis Leviathans ends with the Leviathans taking the Game 1 victory. But boy, it was hard-earned. An unbelievable match from them and an impressive Game 1 performance. And you could be celebrating watching the Leviathans win Game 1 at home in their joggers if you went to shop.smiteproleague.com, picked up the Atlantis Leviathans joggers. Or you could be raging that your Jade Dragons that you're wearing on your left hip have lost Game 1. And then you could go to your computer, trying to get some reprieve, get off the couch, go to the monitor, maybe queue up some SMITE, have the SPL on the other monitor, and then use your Jade Dragons mousepad in order to own in your arena game or something like that, whatever you're going to do. Or, of course, your Atlantis Leviathans mousePad, because we've got mousepads, we've got joggers for every single team in the SPL, so you can all find all that on shop.smiteproleague.com. Zeus and Uller still with you to bring you down the breakdown of what we just saw. Uller, you had something to say?
Was just the combo of the names is the Zuler.
The Zuler,
which is also what we get if the Leviathans lock in Uller.
Correct. That is how it works.
It doubles down.
Whenever you are piloted by Zapman, it becomes the Zuler. That's the way it goes. Look, that Game 1, I mean, the Dragons in a great position. They're doing a lot of good stuff. But that Fire Giant steal from Rongyu, I feel like, changed the entire course of this game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the early game that is going incredibly well for the Dragons and looks really solid for them. In fact, you even get a good solo kill from Panda Cat. Really helps things out. Zapman had 2 kills, so his farm ultimately ended up being slightly ahead, but they were even for the most part. And it comes down to that Fire Giant steal. But also, I think, a dichotomy of things, right? You get a good Fire Giant steal, which admittedly is going to set you up for success no matter what. But then you're also looking at a team that has healing and sustain versus a team that has really long cooldowns on the things they need to win. And once that Sanctified Fields is used in a lot of these fights, or if it was down, that opened up a much easier avenue for the Leviathans. If they could either wait it out or outright ignore it for the first portion of the fight, then they had a lot more wiggle room to work with. And despite the fact that they were, even losing that last EFG, I think it showcases how well this team was coordinated for their team fights, as well as the kind of lead they were able to jump into to make sure that they could control that kind of game despite the early deficit the Dragons had put them in.
Man, what a fun game this was to watch. I mean, so back and forth. The Dragons, had that good early game, but the Leviathans bounce back, and then the Dragons win a fight, and then they go to fire, but then it gets stolen, and it was all over the place, but an absolute blast to watch. This Ho-Yi pick continues to get wins robbed away from it. But Zapman topping the damage charts in that one, 36th K for him.
There was a certain point where I was like, I'm going to be able to go out there to the desk, and I'm going to be able to say Ho-Yi got his second win of the phase. And it still has not happened. He has won in 16 now, I think. He is not a very successful god. But then you look at the damage numbers. He's doing 28K. He's doing all the work he can. It's just these team fights. And I think a lot of it, even in this one, isn't necessarily on what the Ho-Yi was bringing versus the Hachiman, right? It comes down to what Hell is bringing versus Olarun. Again, really large cooldowns on Olarun. You start missing just a little bit of your kit, and all of a sudden, that's a nice large window for the Leviathans to get aggressive. Whereas Hell, hey man, your heal's down for 10 seconds. Boo-hoo. You're going to have it back pretty soon. Xing Shen as well was a really good pickup for the Leviathans into that. Not only for the setup that it brought, but realistically, Olarun, Ho-Yi, Gilgamesh to an extent. Anybody getting hit by that Furious Roar, 50% damage reduction on all of your basic attacks, you're going to feel that.
Can't wait to see what Game 2 is going to bring, because I feel like this has the setup to go the distance and go all 5 here today, because these two teams just look very, very evenly matched in game number 1. But adjustments are going to come through. I mean, that RDO for your core that got top picked was very, very strong. Felt like the Dragons had some trouble with that pick.
Yeah, I think that they're going to have to figure out what they want to change out, right? Cthulhu, I don't want Hardcore on that.
Yeah.
RDO, definitely don't want him on that. The only thing that you could really potentially swap out for it is that Terra first pick. Maybe you try to scoop the RDO away, but then you're giving Rongyu Terra, and that also doesn't feel that good in terms of decision making. So this is where all of the Dragons, but also Kabam comes in very handy, because they're going to have to figure out how to tackle those things.
It's Yamoja in the first ban position. Remember, the Jade Dragons did ban Yamoja, Cthulhu, Serket, game number 1, and then the Leviathan side it was Odin, Geb, and Sol.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of changes so far, though Yamoja was second banned. It was Cthulhu, then Yamoja, and sometimes that does actually end up factoring in, but no, they've just swapped the order.
And sometimes it's just, which one did we think of first, and where am I on the screen? I don't want to scroll back up for Cthulhu. I do like these bands, though. Like, all of them, Odin specifically has been one that, when he gets through, is just such a pain to deal with. The anti-heal, the cage, the damage he can do. I mean, we even saw it successfully run in the jungle the other day, despite the fact that Odin Jungle has kind of been booty cheeks for most of the year. It has not really stood out. The Titans were still able to make that one work and look really good. I give a lot of credit of that to Layers, just because he had a nut set the other day. But I think that this is something that is so far all par for the course. It was the Soul and the Circuit that were the ones that were kind of veering off the beaten path of meta. Either of those are easy to replace with something like the Ardeo or the Terra, but then you're still letting those through. And so you have to weigh, specifically here, is it worth dealing with the Circuit for the Leviathans? And if I'm the Dragons, I think so.
It might be, and Dragons thinking about how they want to go in this last ban position. Took a little bit of time in this exact spot in Game 1 as well, so clearly this is a ban that they've had to discuss each time. I think that Ardeo would be a good fit, but the Hell as well makes a lot of sense. That's a god that no other mid laner is filling the role that Hell would fill for them. And the Leviathans also changing it up. They take away the Terra.
And this is an interesting change-up, only because it feels like they think they could handle the Soul. Like, again, Soul is Heroine's most played god. That was not expected, once again, just as much as the Soul ban, maybe even more than the ban. Ardea's still available, and someone that is very potent. There's still, I mean, Tiamat has to be brought into the discussion just because she exists and is still not an awful pickup. I'm surprised to see, not surprised to see the Terra ban. I think taking away some of the support and the healing from both of these teams is going to be a big win, but that's a lot of pressure for Heroine to make the Soul look good.
I agree. Ardeo is locked in immediately by the Leviathans, but now they hover the Sylvanas and lock it. So they have their front line set. It is 2 healing-centric Guardians, maybe not outright healers, at least in Ardeo's case, but 2 gods that require anti-heal built on the other side.
Yeah, and you're going to, again, even a little bit of sustain is a lot. Soul's going to have some self-sustain. That's going to be helpful in a lot of these fights, but in the middle of what you're looking at, especially late game, that's where the Sylvanas comes in handy, maybe more so than anything. You know, Ardeo, we've seen what her team fight can do, the cripple fields, the roots, the small amounts of heals, the stuns that she can bring. Controlling any sort of zone as a solo laner is made infinitely easier when you have Ardeo's kit, because it kind of does all the work for you. It has all of the CC that you could possibly need to help control, specifically backliners. But then you look at Sylvanas, and it opens up this wild conversation, not just in the healing, but just in cooldowns in general. Late game, Sylvanas, you're throwing out pulls like it's nothing, roots like it's nothing, your ult comes up just a little bit quicker, things like that. And so I think that this is a really good start for a team fight for the Leviathans.
Yeah, I think so too. But on the other side, the Jade Dragons that go back to the Sobek could be for Mike this time around, but I think it's fair to assume that it'll be for Final K over there in solo. And Charybdis, the first hunter off the board. Some undivable backline now between the Soul and the Charybdis. Ullr still available, Set still available, a lot of gods that have dominated that duo lane, but Charybdis the first one off the board.
And honestly, it feels like it's the dichotomy. First off, we saw her performing lights out yesterday, and the damage that she can do and the control that she can have in the middle of a team fight is great. But her survivability is insane as well. So you get kind of the best of both worlds right now. Good damage, good survivability. Very similar to a pick, say, like a Camazotz on the other side. Something that has treated Panatom really well. And I look at Charybdis with Soul. Both of those are very survivable backliners. You've got Sobek, which is either good setup or good peel. But I look at Ardeo, Sylvanas, and Camazotz, and I just say good luck killing them. I don't know where you're going to start. You have to burst them. And then hope for the best.
And then hope for the best is really your only option. A couple of junglers banned by the Leviathans, and Circuit and a Willix, at least saying jungler for Circuit, but could always flex. And then a couple hunters taken out by the Dragons in Izanami and Hachiman. And looks like you're going to be in this one. Ullr now locked in for the Leviathans.
When we were walking over here, Zap did tap me on the shoulder and said, "Nice costume." So
yeah,
I think that goes hand in hand. This is inspired entirely by me.
Yeah, and hopefully he's using your skin as well.
He's gonna load in. He's gonna load in like the tier 5. It's probably a banned skin anyway. He's gonna load in. They're gonna have to remake. It's gonna be a whole thing.
Whoa! It's Hades locked in by the Dragons. We saw this from Solar Troll yesterday. We thought it might just be a little Scarabs exclusive spice, but it's locked in here for the Jade Dragons. Now, they did play a meme set where Mike played Hades support. That did happen.
That, you know what?
And FineOK did play Sobek last game.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's the way it's going to go, though. I have
But
to
now
imagine.
that you've put it into the world,
it has to be
it
Hades
feels
solo.
like that energy fits the way the Dragons play. But yeah, no, it has to be solo. I think that this is a good pick for FineOK. He played it last year, I believe, as well. And the only times he pulled it out last year, I don't even think they were meme games. He pulled them out in serious games. He won with it, and then he would shelf it for a little while because it came out, it won, it did its job. Yesterday we saw what this was capable of when Solo or Troll played it to the point where it started getting banned because he was able to do so much against the Warriors. I think this could be a really good showing for most of the Dragons.
And on the other side, it's an Ola run to finish off the draft, something a little bit of a different look for Shinto. This is not his typical God pool.
Yeah, not at all.
How do you think he's going to do on the Ola run?
You know what? I trust Shinto to play pretty much any mage in the game. I think that's the case for most of the Leviathans. Because they play so much Smite, they have to be able to play everybody. But like you said, it's not a very typical look. And so it's going to be eye-opening because if this doesn't work so well for him, that really does start to showcase maybe where the Leviathan's style is going to be stuck in.
Yeah.
And, of course, what meta picks they're going to be able to leverage because of that.
That's going to be big. This is a big game now. You never want to fall down 2-0 and forced yourself into a reverse sweep position. Leviathans in a commanding 1-0 lead after this game. Gore, what do you think? Which team is taking it here in Game 2?
Man, I really like the Dragons draft. But I really like those top 4 from the Leviathans. This is very difficult. I will say, history-wise, these teams have always gone 3 against each other. It's always a 2-1, things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Dragons win this just by merit of if it was a best of 3. That's the only way to get the distance. But right now, I see Olarun. I see good team fight for the Leviathans. It's very similar to what they just had. Survive a little bit, you're going to be just fine. Hades ult's going to be a problem for them, but with Uller having the range that he does, Olarun as well, being able to potentially deal with him, I think they should be just safe enough. And all of that is assuming FineOK just doesn't pop off. There's always that world where FineOK just pops off on Hades and it doesn't matter. Everything that you think about the game goes out the window and he just plays really well. But I think the Leviathans have the better team fight later on.
Now, more importantly, potentially, we've got a god on both sides that we have dressed up as here for Halloween. You with the Uller, Mifflin with the Susano.
Yeah.
How much do you think your costumes play a factor in this game?
I would hope that by metric, Mifflin's using brown tape. I have like an actual hunting vest.
Wow, you're burying him like that? Gore has been savage recently. You've been channeling your inner Hindu man recently, Gore.
When he's not on broadcast for so long, somebody has to, right?
Someone's got to do it. Well, let's see what happens in Game 2. A potential absolute barn burner here of a Game 2. Let's see what happens.
A fadeaway burn from Gormizer there on Hindu Man even. Game number 2 between the Dragons and the Leviathans. And I am hoping, praying, that we get some more that we got in Game 1 here. Miff, I will call you Miff this game because we do have a Susano in game.
Ha!
And so I can't bring you along on my fun journey here. But there will be a fun journey to be had nonetheless here in Game 2 between the Dragons and the Leviathans, especially when you get the type of composition that the Jade Dragons have built, and it is Mike on Hades support and not Mike on Sobek support. And, of course, that means FineOK will be playing Sobek out of the solo lane. Fun, I think, is automatic just because of this draft.
Yeah, so I guess we have to evaluate what the dual lane of the Jade Dragons should look like, right? Charybdis is generally a god that is going to be lacking in pressure. If she wants to hit the entire wave with her ability, she has to get up point blank, and you don't necessarily want to do that against a Sylvanas who can displace you easily. So how do you make up for that? Well, Hades has got just about infinite pressure. By the time he ticks over to level 3, PBM might just be full clearing the wave completely on his own. Could be a double-edged sword, though. Panda Cat going for a stacking build might make a scenario where you don't want to necessarily go for something like that. So I'm curious to see how this one pans out. And that generally is just the only interesting pick, air quotes, around this game. Maybe you want to highlight Zapman on the Ola run. It's our first look at him on this god. But I think that lane is going to be relatively slow.
I mean, Zapman on Ola run instead of oh my god, Uller.
Yep.
Hold on.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. I'm recentering myself. Zapman on Ola run instead of Uller.
That's right.
Is something to look at here as well, especially when the abilities of Zapman on Uller are so apparent. We've seen this guy pop off on that pick since the Mace Tree changes. And so Shinto has got a lot of weight to carry here. If you're going to give Shinto this pick instead of Zapman, you need to see good things. I don't have much confidence fall off though in Shinto's ability to play this pick. When it comes to hitting abilities, hitting skill shots, rotating through abilities, I think Shinto has a real good shot of doing so, but he's already used his jump in, misses his axe, pulled in by Sanford Soccer, and there's plenty of damage onto Panatom, but not enough. And the sustain keeps the Kamazats alive under the tier 1 tower, and that is risky. Shinto jumps in, misses the axe, and is still able to walk out alive.
I like the call from Shinto to jump in, though. If he lands the axe, Hurrywin takes 80% of his HP because no beads available to this soul. Goes for the Aegis in that slot. So no CC immunity. I mean, you can't use that Aegis while you're CC'd. Maybe just relying on the sap rate for that safety.
More axe flies by Shinto. Sanford Soccer will send some poke damage his way before heading on back into the jungle. Expectations for your costume here, Myth, for Susano in game number 2. I think elevated a little bit because it's Sam playing it.
Yeah, I've got great expectations for Susano. You've got some sneaky good matchups up against Zapman on the Olarun. Olarun generally likes to play inside of his own sanctified field in late-game team fights, but Susano's second ability is just large enough that more often than not, you'll be able to pull him out of his own sanctified field, fight him on your own territory, so there's that opportunity going forward. You've got good chase down potential up against gods like Uhl, leap over wall, don't care, 3 on the god means that you can follow him just about every single time. And then outside of that, knock up being an unbeatable CC means that if he engages, Sanford Soccer that is, onto Panatom with the ultimate, Panatom can't utilize Bat Out of Hell to escape. Has to survive the initial burst of damage after that CC. Susano has a lot of merits in this composition, but maybe a little bit slower than what Panatom is bringing on this Kamazat. So it's up to Sanford Soccer to just kind of stay afloat and make sure he's not falling too far behind in map presence.
Kamazat has been a pretty fun discussion topic, hasn't he, this weekend, where we've seen this rise in play. We've seen great games out of it, some games where he falls by the wayside. It's a god that can do a little bit of everything except for CC, right, is what it feels like. And then you hope that there's enough CC built around him that you can kind of smooth over some of those issues. And it feels like Myth, a composition with an Ardio, an Uller, Sylvanas, and even to some extent Zapman with the Sanctified Field. There's maybe enough CC to not be all that concerned about Panatom's lack of the aforementioned CC.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about it. You've got Ardio and a Sylvanas. That's enough on its own. Everything else is just icing on the cake. Single target CC from Shinto and Zapman creating a no-play zone. Certainly going to be huge factors in the late game, but Panatom just needs to bring damage. We'll see if he's got it.
Stun on to Fino, but Fino has his ult. And it looks like that's the prize the Leviathans had their eyes on. Let's get this ultimate out of the Sobek. And they are fine to do so. Sanford Soccer luckily around this blue to secure it for Fino-K. Just a little chase down damage from Panatom. So that's a smart play from Sanford Soccer, realizing there's pressure impending on right. Rotates in, helps Fino-K at least pick up his blue. And then heads on back. A little pump fake on me there. I thought Panatom might go back to the solo lane here, but instead, looking like he's going to farm up this Scorpion and look elsewhere. And it's rotation time for these supports. And I think now we'll get to see what kind of impact PBM is going to have on this game.
PBM's got a pretty simple engage. He wants to jump in and then presses 4. And if that works...
Is it that easy?
Yeah, it's that easy.
So I should play Hades support.
No. Okay, maybe it's not that easy. We'll see. Here we
We'll
go.
see. Maybe he's got a chance to do so here. That's a nice pull from Rongyu. And a lot of damage onto Hurrywin. A lot of damage onto Mike as well. Shinto sent his axe Mike's way as Hurrywin is already disapparated around the back. Panatom half HP,
Watch
no
him.
mana. This is a 2 versus 1 as Sanford Soccer's around the right. Speed buff's going to get secured by Panatom here. Has Sanford Soccer done too much? He teleports out, but Shinto has hit his abilities. Typhoon hits all 3, but Rongyu's rotating to right as well. There is no rest for the weary. Fantastic pluck from Fino-K, and Sanford Soccer will get out alive unless Hardcore makes something crazy happen. He will not, and the peel from Fino seals the deal.
Unfortunate for Sanford Soccer there. Had a decent path into the speed buff, realizing that Panatom was going to be low HP, and he was, about 20% on that Kamazats, but Yarkor turning the corner is enough to switch that engagement up. Nice rotation from Shinto nearly is enough to finish off Sanford Soccer, but a 3-man ultimate from the Susano is just enough to find that peel, as well as a nice pluck from Fino-K to keep him afloat. And Sam gets to maintain his blink throughout all of that, so he can get involved yet again after he resets from base.
All right, Fino-K is about to reset here as well. Just wanted to clear up that wave. Maybe head on back, pick up his blue buff in just a moment's time. By this point in game 1, Myth, both junglers had made 2-3 appearances, it felt like. Sanford Soccer dancing on a knife edge just a moment ago around the Leviathan speed buff, but both teams apparently content with getting some farm under their belts. Little power spike for Sam here. He gets the Crusher. Jotun's completed for Panatom. And it's really around these supports where maybe we start to see some action. Mike hanging out in mid lane. Has Blink on Hades. And you're going to want to use that aggressively and set up for your team.
He's also gone for a slightly aggressive build, some power built early on. We'll see if it pans out.
Can he even get the ult off? No, there is so much damage from the Leviathans, and First Blood, 7.5 minutes in, is on to Polar Bear Mike. Oh, what a dodge from Shinto. He'll jump out of range of the ultimate from Panda Cat, and the Charybdis comes up empty-handed. The Jade Dragons empty-handed. The Leviathans, they will swing, they will connect with the jaw of Polar Bear Mike for First Blood.
1,100 gold, maybe 1,200 separating these two teams already. Leviathans, a commanding lead. And it's just a clean CC chain is all that it takes to shut down PBM at this point of the game. A pull from Rongyu into an axe from Shinto is enough to spell the doom of the Jade Dragon support. But Mike can't be deterred by that. He can't get sad about it. Instead, has to be able to just walk back in there and say, look, that's the nature of Hades. He's essentially a sacrificial god in that it's a leap forward, it's an ultimate that roots you in place. Sure, you've got some damage mitigation. You'd like to have used it at some point in that fight. He's just got to keep trying for it. Hades is not a god that you can afford to just let off on.
And that is Exhibit A on why I shouldn't play Hades support. It's because the moment that happens to me, my mental is checked out, and I'm doing nothing for the rest of the game. Mike does not fall prey to my mindset when it comes to playing things like this. So you expect to bounce back at some point here for the Jade Dragon. Sam is on the left side of the map at the moment. Oleron low on in-kit mobility, but still difficult to kill off with that Sanctified Field. So Sam for Soccer will head on back, resume farming things up. Miff, it took, what, to the 20-minute mark to finally see a Gold Fury go down in game number 1. Both Hunters totally fine, farming up for those power spikes. That man, we talked to him a little bit between both of those games. He's like, look, man, you know, if jungle support, they come into my lane, they want to gank for me, I got to fight. But I'm chilling until level 20, and so maybe that's the mindset here of this Oleron.
It's the Hunter mindset since 2011, and Zapman's been playing for that long. This guy, if he could, would load into a game at level 20 with everybody else.
Would anyone not do that?
Well, yeah. I mean, some teams want everyone
to
load
you mean everyone level 20?
Yeah.
Got it.
That's on me. Didn't explain it very well. Shinto, sitting inside the fog, tries to set up a small gank, but the Jade Dragons privy to it are able to avoid his damage this time around. I'm expecting this game to go a little bit longer. Already the pacing is reflecting that. 10 minutes in, only 1 kill so far. And the Jade Dragons having a decent scaling composition between double Hunter, 1 magical, 1 physical, means that they don't really have to rush it too much. They've got similar scaling levels to the Leviathans, who have similarly got 2 Hunters, 1 physical, 1 magical. So I'm sure both of these teams are very content to just kind of spin their wheels for the next 10 or so minutes until an actual objective fight does rear its head.
Could be Pyromancer. That's what we saw in game 1 as sort of the first neutral objective eyed by either teams. The Leviathans were a little more aggressive in starting it up, but PBM on the Terra was doing his best to make life difficult as far as secure goes. And worth remembering, look, the Leviathans have a little momentum coming into this game. The Jade Dragons felt in control of game 1 until Rongyu makes a miracle steal away. Unfortunately, it won't make a miracle pull happen here in mid. Goes right by Hurrywind and Polar Bear Mike, respectively. But that was a very winnable game in every aspect from the Jade Dragons. And then even after that Fire Giant, the Jade Dragons lost a couple towers, kept their left side Phoenix alive. It was great fighting from the Leviathans, so frustrating for sure for the Jade Dragons, but not a team that backs down from tasks like this. And so if Pyromancer, if Gold Fury start up, this game feels close enough where the Jade Dragons would show some face. Both mid towers relatively healthy here at this point in Myth. Not a lot of pressure pushing one way or another there in the mid lane, so Shinto and Hurrywind have both been able to farm things up just fine. 1 level lead for Hurrywind, but everything else in this game, now including the 1 level lead in mid lane, is gone. It's all even. We've got plenty of power spikes to go here. And you've got a little bit on both sides, Myth, that could scale up and could feel good in the late game if this pace continues.
Yeah, both teams, I'm sure, are just, let's farm up, let's get our own camps, let's make sure neutrals are going our way, mid camps as well. The Leviathans have been showing up to those a little bit more often than the Jade Dragons. As of now, mid camp control across the board is Is that a mask pickup for PBM?
SOT bought this, didn't he?
Yeah, but SOT bought it way later in his build because you're sacrificing damage for defense. Maybe PBM.
Does Mike care about damage?
I suppose not.
I mean, I do.
It's
but
a
again, that's why
fear.
I'm bad.
He's going damage mitigation already in the build. He's sacrificed Thieves, Sov, and Heart Ward essentially. This is one way to make it back up. I like this mask pickup. Maybe he's just concerned about the fact that got slammed by CC one time and died instantly before he was allowed to use his ult. He wants the CC in these fights, and this is one way to get it.
I appreciate Mike throwing a little curveball into a matchup that is slowed down here. Rongyu's around the back of the mid lane. And this is a game, you know, for the Jade Dragons specifically, they have diversified their win strategy so much over even Season 8. Season 7 specifically, you know, this was an early game powerhouse roster. But a team that's pretty passionate. I remember when we did the team check-in with these guys, I said, Jade Dragons are an early game only team.
You said that to them?
No, let me contextualize it, Miff. I am halfway through a sentence. Quote, the Jade Dragons are an early game only team, end quote, comma.
Okay.
How much stock do you put into that? I don't know, maybe you should have been a semicolon or something. This one's going to get bailed out by the Leviathans, maybe showing some face around the Pyro. Jade Dragons will drop it. Could still be a fight impending. All going to depend on this pull from Ronggyu. Fine, okay, a bit caught out. But now it's the Pyromancer pulled by the Leviathans. It's a soft reset, and there's a lot of damage here. I don't think the Dragons have the legs to get in range. They do not, and so a neutral objective over to the Leviathans. A pluck onto Hardcore, but no damage there on the other end. And upon bringing that up with the Jade Dragons, you know, you could tell, you know, a little frustrated that they've had to deal with, and it hasn't been so much over Season 8, but Season 7 specifically, the mindset that they can only scrap early and they can't scrap late. I think a lot of those worries have been dashed here in Season 8 because games like this, the Jade Dragons still feel very comfortable in as a roster, and as somebody watching them, a slower-paced game is no longer, and hasn't been for a while, a detriment to this team and their play style.
There was a while where the Jade Dragons, or then Ghost Gaming, were struggling in late-game skirmishes, and they're playing against the Leviathans, then Sanguine, who are the late-game skirmish masters.
Right.
They love it if the game goes 30, 40 minutes. That's where they are most comfortable. And as of now, on the way to that, on the path to a 30-minute game, Leviathans have accrued themselves a quiet 2,000 gold lead. The Jade Dragons were the ones to pull that Pyromancer. It was the Leviathans showing a small amount of face around it. The Dragons reset to their own back camps fully, dropping the Pyro at around 60% HP. Of course the Leviathans are going to pull it out there.
Right.
Nobody from the Dragons is there, and the Pyro's already weakened. That is as easy as it comes, and the Leviathans not one to let it go down without at least taking it themselves.
Right.
So 2,000 gold is the separator, 15 minutes into this one. But expect this pace to keep up, Dave. I'm projecting first team fight, 21 minutes. That's my guess.
All right, we got 6 minutes to go, and so we will have a little time. Doug, give me a hover, if you would, over the mask that PBM has picked up here, just for those of us who don't often get to see these mask pickups.
So everybody, that mask, that's like never
literally
purchased.
never gets picked up. So it was Lono's mask that SOT picked up yesterday. And so it's really the flavor text at the bottom there that becomes very important. Minus 15% damage taken, which is great, but then you also lessen your damage done and your healing received as well. And so you're getting some of that tankiness is the long and short of it, I think, when you pick up a mask like that. Less worried about the damage, more worried about being able to get in and set up fights.
And that's exactly what he's looking to do. Hasn't seen it as of yet. We've seen PBM getting exactly one scrap so far, and he didn't cast a single ability throughout the entirety of it before he was forced back to base in a body bag.
Hear me out, Miff.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm cutting you off here,
yeah,
but I have the thought. How about a mist that covers the entire side of the jungle?
I'm sorry, like
all of the pathways, and like you break 2 lanterns.
We have that. It's called Fog of War, and it's a giant mist.
Yeah,
that
right.
Okay.
On the map, I'm saying you break a lantern, and right now it's a nice little circle that you can stand in. What if it just covered like the entire ring around the red buff?
How's that functionally different from the Fog of War?
Because if I walk around the red buff, I can see somebody there. If there's a giant ring of mist around the red buff, I don't know if somebody's in that.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's awful. Gold Fury gets pulled out here, and it is the Jade Dragons being the aggressor.
Team, hit up my DM's design team. I got
40%
some great ideas for you. Gold Fury low. Sanford Soccer with the Typhoon will secure the Gold Fury Sanctified Field. is down as well from Zapman, but Pandacat is low. He's gotta get down, gotta get out of this fight. Panatom will do his best to chase him down, but Polar Bear Mike has been left alone. He's already used his ultimate, he's used his escape, and he's used up the last of his life. The Leviathans, they lose the Gold Fury, but they will get a kill onto Mike for the second time in the game.
Dave, you know what I saw in that fight besides the Jade Dragons just picking up a Gold Fury and
What?
closing up the game a little bit more so? I saw the damage mitigation that PBM is working with right now. Between Stonefowl, Lono's Mask, and the damage mitigation
He
you
stayed
get from
alive.
Pillars of Agony,
Yeah.
he sat inside of a Sanctified Field for literally the entirety of it, ate every single auto attack Zapman could muster, and still was sitting at about 60% by the time Sanctified Field dropped down.
Yep.
He's tanky. He is going to be in the back line of the Leviathans come team fight phase, and it's not going to stop. This guy is around for the long haul.
And I think that's important given the 0-2 start, that we still see just with these two items there's some value to this Hades pick, because there are certain supports that follow that type of trend. You look at, you know, a Ymir. You can start off the game 0-3. By the late game in these jungle fights, if you're throwing up a wall and getting a freeze, who cares if you're 0-3? You're still doing your job. Polar Bear Mike may be in a similar conversation here. You're going to be tanky with a couple of those items. If you can lock down some targets, keep yourself in the fight. You know, 0-2 start is not the end of the world. That Gold Fury goes a long way, though, for the Jade Dragons in lessening this gold lead. That's something, you know, the Leviathan's 2,000 ahead right now. If you get that Gold Fury, it's starting to get just a little bit out of reach, because the Leviathans are a team that can stretch a gold lead like this, make it feel a lot bigger than it really is. But a good play from the Jade Dragons keeps themselves in contention here in this game. Pyromancer is back up, and that's something the Leviathans kind of got gifted to them, you feel like, last time. Some of the Jade Dragons will not, hopefully, allow to have happen again here on the right.
And neither team has shown presence around the Pyromancer as of now. Some significant power spikes have been hit from both sides. Serrated Edge finished up by Panatom, so he's dealing a massive amount of damage. Shinto's build is rounding out nicely as well. Crusher and Jotun's matched up with Transcendence. He's essentially a mage. Take a peek at that damage. That's 20% off of Pandacat. Immediately healed up, though,
Yeah, Mike.
thanks to that Devourer's Gauntlet's Death Toll. So glad we saw it on the initial hit. Both teams now grouped up. It's 2 minutes early. No shot. We're taking a team fight over the Pyromancer, right? It's not 21.
Fine, okay, gets a 4-man tail whip, and then Mike dashes in. It's immediate re-engage. Zapman throws out the Sanctified Field and walked out of Pandacat and the CC Immune ultimate. 3 minutes done. Oh, it's huge from the Charybdis, but there's nobody there to follow up. Sanford Soccer finds his way into the back line. In the rain of hellfire from Hurrywind will pick up the first kill for the Dragons. Immediately traded out, though, as Sanford Soccer falls in the back. A double kill for Panatom. Hardcore has got one as well. All the CC in the world can't keep you alive, and the Leviathans run away with the fight, and they might have a real good look at FG.
Fine, okay, the only one still standing and no ultimate available means there's no way he works his way into the Fire Giant, but we've seen crazier steals literally in game one.
Yeah, be careful, Miff.
Ferocious Roar was able to do it, so I should hedge my bets. Shinto's going to do the exact same thing by rotating out and making sure that nobody is able to step up to the Fire Giant proper. Rongu spawns in 2 seconds and will benefit from the Fire Giant buff. The Atlantis Leviathan 6-1. 20 minutes into this one, now with the largest gold separation as well, at 4,000, have got a great look at the rest of this game.
Here's a look back at the fight, Mifflin. Pandacat had to use the defensive utility pretty early on in this fight, and that's a good look from Panatom. And this shows you right, so the Camazotz lacks hard CC, but has the ability to do this, which is stick to backliners, and it was a great look at a fight for the Leviathans and Panatom specifically.
And all my homies hate Shinto. They stealing triple kills at the tail end.
And you know what was funny? That was a very Shinto moment where 3 of the Leviathans, they do like 50% of the Fire Giant. And then Shinto says, yeah, you guys got the rest of this. Goes and does the mid Harpies, goes and gets an entire wave in mid. Got to make sure you maintain self-farmed up. Granted, there was no threat of a steal. But I love that it's Shinto, the one who leaves, and gets the rest of his farm while the rest of the team sticks around on the Fire Giant. Should have been a triple for Panatom. Instead, 1 goes over to Shinto, makes it a 2-0-3 Uller. And now, this is shaky ground for the Jade Dragons. The Leviathans have a real big lead here in game number 2, and would be a real big lead in the set if the Leviathans are able to close out in game 2. It's going to require a full reverse sweep at that point if the Jade Dragons do end up falling here. And this Leviathans team, look, they're the top seed in this group for a reason. Fine, okay, receives some pressure here from Hardcore. Shinto with no good on the axe, or at least force out the ultimate. This Leviathans team has showed us over their last couple matchups why they are maybe the most favored team in the league at the moment.
They just look so good in the team fight. The communication is there, the energy. These guys do not get hit in the mental either. I've not once seen a singular member from the Leviathans not speaking. They could be down 0-2 in a best of 5, and I am certain that they would keep their mentals in check. And that is so powerful here. The Jade Dragons, on the other hand, I would consider one of the more emotional teams within the league. I think if they get dropped down to an 0-2 early on, that could be crushing for the rest of this series here. So the Jade Dragons, I'm sure, would love to be able to stop another siege from the Leviathans. Have not seen the Dragons put up a defense as of yet. It was an attempted split push called back by Pandacat, as it seemed like the Leviathans were going to approach that left side Phoenix, but instead it was a reset, spend up all that gold, get that Oni Fury, and now try yet again to push in. I don't think the Leviathans, so early into the game, 22 minutes, necessarily need to take out a Phoenix. They had already stripped so many towers. This gold lead is very quickly ballooning out of control, approaching the 8,000 mark. Two tier 2 towers could very easily put us over 10,000 if the Leviathans are able to take a kill or two along the way. The Jade Dragons, their defense is strong. They've got good CC lockdown, but they've been struggling to finish off these kills.
They sure have been. Only 1 kill for the Jade Dragons, and that's for Hurrywin. And it was on such good setup. I mean, you look at a moment like that. Pandacat gets a 3-man stun with the Charybdis ultimate. You're able to at least get a little follow-up there. These towers made quick work of. Who's that? That's FinoK over here on right with Hardcore and Panatom. Might be enough damage between the two. But it's a dash away from FinoK. Tier 2 tower is gone in mid and left and right. And you're going to have 3 exposed Phoenixes. This is kind of overtime. This is garbage time on this Fire Giant buff. You got 30 seconds left, maybe a push or two on this right side Phoenix. If it goes well enough, you could end the game. You got 1 look at it here for the Leviathans. Jade Dragons, they've stood well under their Phoenixes so far this set. Maybe another chance to do so here. 15 seconds left on the buff.
Mike is incredibly tanky in the furthest forward, but we're already getting a good look at the damage output of Shinto. Just hail of arrows, drop him down.
Wave is in, Hardcore is in. Mike dashes into the back. No amount of tankiness in the world will keep him alive there. Your support is gone. The defensive utility is gone from Pandacat as well. Mid lane Phoenix, or right side Phoenix rather, see you later. Mid lane Phoenix, hey, how you doing? But the Leviathans, they will stick around despite there being no wave. In the left side Phoenix took a lot of damage there as well. This is no Fire Giant buff on the Leviathans, and they're going to get all 3 Phoenixes in the last 15 seconds of the FG buff.
Yeah, minion wave's very close by, but who needs it when you've got this kind of damage output? Double Hunter, it will do that for you. All 3 Phoenixes down now for the Jade Dragons, and you can see the energy on the Leviathan's faces. They are popping off. They smell blood in the water, and they're looking for a W in Game 2. We're about 20 seconds away from the Fire Giant plummeting back down to Earth onto the battleground of the gods, and Leviathans with a commanding 13,000 gold lead. 25 minutes in. Gotta think they're heavily favored taking that engagement. I do not believe the Jade Dragons can leave their base. I just don't love their odds in that fight. Sure, PBM's tanky if he's channeling his ultimate. He hasn't been allowed to channel his ultimate in these team fights. PBM has died 4 times, and in 3 of those, did not use a single ability.
Yeah, I end up with a little bit of egg on my face here. I'm thinking, all right, he's 0-2, but he was pretty tanky in that last fight. Maybe he's still able to do his thing. Since then, has died twice more, like, quickly. Hasn't been able to do anything. So, maybe Hades doesn't have the same bounce-back potential as a Ymir, which is a very specific comparison for me to be making. But needless to say, Mike has had a tough game on the Hades support here. Admire the creativity.
He stepped up.
Hasn't worked out so far. Mike blinks in again, but he's immediately sent on back. Zapman sends an axe his way. Hardcore and Sanford Soccer dueling it out here on right. Talk about tanky, that's Hardcore. Yeah. Talk about not tanky, that's FinoK, whose health bar is gone. The Leviathans, do you even need a Fire Giant? Do you even need to take a fight around the objective? Sanford Soccer gets the Typhoon, but it's a bat out of hell to save his life. Shinto has got a double. He stole a triple earlier on, and he might get one for himself here. Around the corner is FinoK. Pandacat down. Shinto a triple. Hurrywin left running. Leviathans, they smell Game 3. They smell the 2-0 lead, and I imagine they'll get it. Shinto, quad, give it to him, baby. The Uller swinging 7:03 at the end of the game.
Mike's hiding in the back camps, won't give up the Penta, but will give up Game 2. The Leviathans look dominant you might have a good look at the late game of the Jade Dragons, but the Leviathans have been doing it for much, much longer.
Minions were going to get it done nonetheless. And I end up with egg on my face twice. I'm saying you're giving Shinto Uller when you got Zapman on your team. Yeah, quadra kill will feel just fine for the Leviathans in a momentum swing. In a game, in a best-of-5 set, you go into a game 3 after a dominant performance from the Leviathans like that. You know, in game 1, you know, it's a steal. You know, the Jade Dragons, you're probably frustrated, but you're thinking, we were in this game. We competed. It just didn't come up our favor. Now you look at a game 2 where it was not particularly close, Myth, outside of what are you laughing at?
It's hard to wear. Can you tell it's falling? I've got a headset on.
There's like a basket inside there.
Yeah, so that's where you put your skull. There's a little basket here.
Yeah.
This string's good, but it tangles on the headset. I didn't think out this costume for broadcast.
No, you didn't, but it looks great, Myth. Unfortunately, your costume did not perform very well.
Stop hitting me with the stick. Give me the stick. Give me. Okay. All right, throw. Go ahead.
We are going to break game 3 right after this.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
That's right, the SMITE World Championships and hi-rez Showcase, January 6th through the 9th, fast approaching as we are already celebrating Halloween right now, and overall very excited about what we're going to be doing at the SMITE World Championship. We've got a stocked show for you, as we always do when it comes to the SWC, so make sure you check it out. This is going to be our schedule for the SMITE World Championship here in Season 8. We're starting off with the hi-rez Showcase on Thursday, and then the SWC begins in earnest on Friday. But that doesn't mean you want to miss out on what we got going on Thursday. A community clash tournament, the Golden Boats nomination show, and then some great panels, cosplay contests, and of course, hi-rez presents. And you get your very first look at the Slash map. You get your Season 9 update show. You got a lot of great stuff there coming for the hi-rez Showcase. Again, January 6th through the 9th, so make sure you get locked in and ready to go on that. We got Zeus and Uller here on the desk with a Raijin sitting in between. Oh yeah, here you need this, right? Yeah, you forgot that earlier. Yeah, I got you, buddy. Look, you looked awfully good in that match, Uller. A clean quadra kill for you. We thought it was going to be Zapman piloting you.
Yeah.
But Shinto was able to get it done.
And I'm going to say, I like that. I think that was a really good change for him. We were talking a lot about it when the Jotun's Wrath change came through, and we were like, man, maybe this is going to be where Hunter's mid start to pop off again. We saw a little bit of Neath, but realistically, Neath has only been played so far by the Valkyries in mid lane. Shinto just had a whale of a time playing throughout this game, and a lot of damage that was able to come through, stealing one triple kill, but earns a quadra kill the right way. I just think the range damage was a lot to handle. I mean, an 8.5 KD, but it's the 18.5k damage that I think is what matters the most here. It felt like there was nothing they could do to get back there. A couple of times there was some pressure from the Susanoo, but they were really good at handling Sam when he got into the back line and slowing down what the Susanoo could do, and then it just felt like it was either Panatom, it was either Shinto, or Zapman with a really big ult that slowed down and set up the rest of the kills for the Leviathans.
Look, I mean, we thought it was going to be Sobek support, Hades solo. Maybe it should have been. This Hades support for PBM did not look good at all, was really not able to get anything done on this pick. And the Dragons, after a close Game 1, get nearly blanked in Game 2. Heroin, the only member to find a kill.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
Not where you want to be. Yeah, there were a lot of moments where Mike tried to go in, tried to set things up. I think Mifflin had called it out. Wants to live long enough, not be CC'd so heavily, just to get an ult out. Whether, like, even if that's all you're able to do. I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but like the prots you get from your ult as Hades should then let you live long enough to get something done. The fear is really handy, but he died before he could get most of that off in the beginning, and so you had a lot of good damage, and I think a lot of it has to deal with the fact that Kamazot's Panatom just looked really, really good on that pick. The damage that came down from the Uller as well was solid, and then your worst case scenario is you take a little bit of damage, and then Artio and Sylvanas heal you right back up. I think they had a really good fallback plan and a really good team fight there for the Leviathans.
Yeah, I think it's time to take this Artio out of Yarkor's hands, huh? I mean, he did top damage in this game yet again, just was dominant on this pick, 20k, the only member to hit that number. This Artio selection looking really, really strong for him. And the Sobek for Final K has certainly been good in the team fights, but isn't bringing that same level of dominance.
Yeah, I think that we really need to see... I don't even know what you trade out for. It's the same conversation I was having last time. The Circuit, that's something you could drop to take another ban, but do I really want Shinto to have Hell as opposed to RDO for your hardcore? I mean, maybe? I don't know if it's a worthwhile trade. It's definitely going to be an interesting transition here for the Dragons, because everything they've been banning up to this point has been very, very high priority. The biggest change, once again, I think I could say, is this first pick. Last time, at least in Game 1, we're talking about a Terra, and that is a little more difficult to try and, transcend beyond and picks anything over. Unless, we talked about it, what, Geb is available realistically is maybe somebody that you grab over that. Cthulhu right now is someone that you can grab over that. But they grabbed Soul. I think that, admittedly, while it did get the only kill on the team, that's something you could easily bump down to 2, number 3, even number 4 or 5.
Yeah, maybe not the greatest prioritization there from the Dragons. So the Leviathans did ban it in Game 1, so you probably needed a top 3 it, but
yeah,
letting that Artio go through will not be allowed this time, though, as the Dragons have banned Yamoja and Artio. Still sticking with the Odin Geb bans on the other side for the Leviathans. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're on the Chaos side, and Leviathans sitting pretty at 2-0, now forcing the Jade Dragon to try and run a reverse sweep in this set. So the Dragons have changed their third ban each time. It has been Serket and Hell, and this time it will be Hell, which leaves open Cthulhu, potentially, if the Leviathans don't take it away.
I have to assume that if it could, either this is a Terra ban once again for the Leviathans, and the Dragons immediately scoop up Cthulhu, or it's a Cthulhu ban for the Leviathans, and the Dragons probably then immediately scoop up the Terra. I think either way you're going to be happy with it. Sylvanas was another one that was top 2'd, but with Hell and Ardeo gone, you start slicing a little bit away from each of the Leviathans' top 2 picks overall. I think Camazotz is still an easy and adaptable first pick for you, so it's not necessarily something you need to worry about. And Oleron, we had talked about this, has plenty of natural counters out in the world that you probably don't scoop them up immediately. This is admittedly a little surprising to me.
Sylvanas first overall here for the Jade Dragons, so not giving Mike the opportunity to talk them into playing Hades. They go the Sylvanas, but Yarkor just keeps getting these priority picks passed up over him, and he's happy to take them.
Remember last game where we were saying, hey, maybe we need to deal with this Ardeo, and I said, do you really want him to have Cthulhu?
No.
That might be worse for you, honestly. I think we're starting to enter that world. That being said, Cthulhu has definitely started to showcase that there are counters to it. It is not the easiest thing to do, and your draft has to be heavily built on kill Cthulhu, hope for the best with the rest. But I do think it's possible. I mean, you know, Sam loves to play Nemesis. You have seen, what was it, yesterday, Kali was getting picked up.
Yep.
Chin size, anyone that can utilize that. Bakasura, I think, can even be thrown into that conversation as someone who could potentially burn it down. Kali a little bit better just because the knock-up immunity, things like that. And so there's a lot of things that exist as a counter to this Cthulhu. But you have to build a lot of a draft around it. And we saw the Scarabs do it a couple of times. And specifically, the Kali, the Iza, and the Charybdis. They had the double hunter that really opened things up for them.
Looking back at yesterday's set with that Cthulhu, I believe it went 0-3 in those games. So was not particularly good in that set yesterday between the Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs, but we'll see how the Leviathans can perform on it this time around. It's Camazotz yet again for Penetom, who looked phenomenal on this pick last game. Just impossible to peel him away. He's going to get his damage off, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
In fact, now that I'm looking at it, 0-4, 0-5, I think, for the week. 1-5 for the week for the Cthulhu, at least from the 2 sets that I'm looking at immediately. Then there's a 6th loss. Yeah, he hadn't been doing a whole lot overall. No. The only team that's won with him that I can see immediately is the Leviathans, the very first one, but they also had a Hell, a Terra, Heimdall, and Camazotz beside it. So it seems to make sense. Everybody else seems to have been able to deal with it a little bit more. So maybe while it feels oppressive and powerful, teams have definitely gotten into a better spot of dealing with it. It's still not something I readily give up, I think, to the Leviathans, but knowing that they have that plus a Camazotz is a little more eye-opening. Maybe still worrisome for the team fights just based on what Penetom was able to do. But Ullr's already a good start, I think, in helping deal with it. I think Oleron falls into that category as well, so Cthulhu is going to have a little bit more of a struggle. That being said, Camazotz and Cthulhu also have great ults for dealing with Oleron.
Yeah, I was going to say, you kind of pick Oleron into 2 gods that deal with him pretty well. I mean, you don't have we talk about Chin Size and Soul Reaver being the easiest answers to this Cthulhu, and you don't build Chin Size nor Soul Reaver on Ullr or Oleron, and now you get the Morrigan here for Shinto, so you get the option to have 2 different Cthulhu ultimates in the course of the team fight, and I'm not sure the Jade Dragons are equipped to handle 1.
Yeah, that's the that's the dilemma, isn't it? This is the combo that has been, I don't want to say plaguing the league, but it does feel like a plague when you're playing against it. It is very, very devastating and can cause a lot of trouble for you. And it's only to be said, like you said, 2 Cthulhus in a late game team fight, but also now you have the potential for 2 Camazotz. But no matter what, you have 3 people on your team that are more than capable of running down this Oleron, assuming Morrigan has the ult, which makes it much more dangerous for Panda Cat or Hurwind, whoever ends up piloting this. Hurry played it earlier, so it makes sense that it might be shifted over to him. That's a lot of pressure to try and withstand, and I don't know if you have enough to deal with it just yet.
Couple of warrior bans by the Leviathans covering their jungle and solo bases with Nike and Gilgamesh, 2 gods that can flex to either role. And then it's Serket and Hachiman banned away by the Jade Dragons. That leaves open a pick that Rongyu used to great effectiveness up against the Oleron in game 1 of this set, which is the Xing Chen getting that auto attack damage reduction on that Furious Roar. And oh yeah, scaling away a Fire Giant too tended to help. But I thought the Xingqian was very effective in game 1 of this set. A little surprised the Dragons let it through.
And you know what? The things we were talking about actually matches up really well. What was causing Cthulhu a lot of trouble yesterday? It is these chin-size auto attackers that are beating him down while he's in his ult and not caring about how tanky he is. Who better to help stop that than Xingqian, who just says, no, you can't deal as much damage to him. And I think this is going to open up a lot of conversation. Now, if they lock this in, this Hu Yi, it is either fantastic because he has great boxing potential and has a lot, or it's awful because his win rate has now gravitated to 6%, making it even worse than it was before.
Well, got to win eventually is that man's strategy, and he goes to the Hu Yi. Liked the matchup fairly well up against the Ullr and the Olorun. Achilles is the pick that's standing out to me alongside this Hun Bats, this right side of the map for the Jade Dragons, getting Sam some hard CC. It does give the Morgan a really good transformation to the Hun Bats, but I don't think that you can just not pick the god that you want to be playing because it's good for the Morgan. How do you think that these two last picks for the Dragons stack up?
Honestly, again, stacking them all together, Hun Bats, like you said, maybe opens up too many opportunities for the other side. But I like the CC that he's going to be able to bring, especially in the middle of a team fight. And it should be either enough of a distraction or keep some people away. You know, if Xingqian doesn't have beads, then all of a sudden you're going to zone him away. Ullr, Olorun, and Achilles can combo down, get the damage necessary to the execute to kill off a Cthulhu or two, and then hope for the best afterward. Once you get rid of the front line that exists for the Leviathans, it becomes so much easier. Once the Cthulhu's gone, really, you don't even need to worry about the Xingqian after that. You should be able to take a 4-on-4 or 3-on-3 pretty simply. And so in theory, that fight works out really well. In practice, it works out really well, assuming Xingqian doesn't disrupt everything, assuming everything gets to line up the way you want it to. And unfortunately, not all of these timers are going to exist on the same plane. I mean, Olorun's only going to have his ult every now, like over 100 seconds that he has to wait every time. Hun Bats is in a very similar vein. It's going to be complicated, but I think they can pull it off.
The Leviathans looking to sweep away the Jade Dragons, stay undefeated in Group A. Let's see if it goes down.
Jade Dragons have a pretty good chance of doing so because Myth hasn't done the reverse sweep coming up just yet. And so at least this one goes to the Dragons, and then maybe we revisit that before we go to our next break. The Dragons and the Leviathans, Myth. Game 1 was so close, so back and forth, a little bit of everything. And vintage Leviathans, I think, in game number 2. Close early game, balloons out, and the Leviathans just kind of dominate the Dragons in the late game team fights in game 2. Could be a similar mindset here. Look, you've got Cthulhu, you've got Morrigan. And the desk expressed some concern at the Jade Dragons' ability to deal with those two.
Yeah, I've got to echo that concern as well. Not only do you have Morrigan, but you have Morrigan and Cthulhu together, which is just gross. But also, Xingqian's got a great counter matchup into a double auto attack composition to Hunters on the side of the Jade Dragon, so that auto attack mitigation from Ferocious Roar going to deal a lot of a blow to the DPS of the Jade Dragons. Panatom as well has some decent targets for himself. Hurrywind in particular essentially can't peel off a Camazot. Sanctified Field does not work against Bat Out of Hell. Sanford Soccer, I think, has a lot of weight to carry. Fear No Evil might be single-handedly the most important cooldown on the Jade Dragons. That's with Sanctified Field existing.
Yeah.
If he's able to close gap on a Shinto pre-transformation, that's one way in. But if Shinto's the one hunting in these late-game fights, as a nice, very nice Ricochet drops Panic Hat down to 50% HP, Shinto could just one-shot Hurrywind before he's able to drop his ultimate. There's a lot of nuance to how these engagements can go.
Yeah, got to be a comeback game for Sanford Soccer here. The Susano an opportunity to sort of play a lone wolf, get some big damage numbers, some kills later on in the game. Fear No Evil, a bit of a different look. That's team setup here, and Sanford Soccer has got to do so for the rest of the squad. Leviathans, if they have their way, they'll get first blood here on the right side. It's fine. Okay, push to the wayside. Beads get used. Meyer sends him right back the other way. It's a zoning ability from Hardcore. And that's Sanford Soccer leaping back in, but fine. Okay, you can't really re-engage. Sanford Soccer will go back in. It's a dash through from Hardcore. And now suddenly Sanford Soccer might be on the menu for first blood. In fact, he is. Hardcore Gets first blood, stun from Fine OK, no good, and Sam ends up falling instead of his solo laner.
Shinto on the other side takes a 2v1 up against Hurrywind and PBM, but the rest of the Leviathans are here shortly. Wrong you. He's got Hurrywind isolated.
And Hurrywind is on the wrong side of the map. He's between the Leviathans Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower, to put this into context for you. And so this is going to be a chase down from the Leviathans.
So
the body blocks just delaying things here, Mifflin. Panatom is around the other side of this Ola run as well. Stun through, feeds out, down goes Hurrywind, and the Leviathans, 3 minutes into game 2, have already gotten a couple of kills. One on the jungler, one on the mid laner. Zatman nearly made it 3. Get some good damage onto Panda Cat.
Zatman pretty close to level 5 at this point. If he ticks over on this wave, could be an opportunity to try and finish what he just started. But the Leviathans netting themselves, what is that, 1,400 gold in the lead, 3 minutes in. That's a tough start for the Jade Dragons, who have got a lot of scaling ahead of them between Ull and Olarun. It's going to be a slower early game, maybe less so with the Ull, who's got some decent bully potential in lane, but Olarun certainly. And having Olarun in the center of the map means that your 3v3 has taken a significant hit. That is generally why we see Olarun kind of slated towards the long lane for a majority of these other teams. You can leave Hunters alone. You can say, all right, let's just ignore that side of the map. In mid, you're kind of forced to get involved.
They are forced to get involved. Hurrywind, almost against his will there, chased down by the Leviathans. It was a look at a red buff invade that Shinto was able to end up getting there anyway. So this is a fantastic start for the mid to right side of the map for the Leviathans. A kill for Hardcore, a couple assists for Panatom. Shinto gets himself in the kill column as well. Looks like Doomorb is going to be the start. So you expect some mobility, some rotations out of the Leviathans mid laner here. Keep this ball rolling early in the game. Now it's about stemming the bleeding for the Jade Dragons. Hurrywind, I think, realizes that Panatom is here. Mike doesn't either, does whiff the initial ability, and I think smart from Panatom to head out after that.
Yeah, Vampiric Bats could have spelled Hurrywind's doom there. The slow would have been massive, the damage output as well, to create that space and allow the Leviathans to rotate their way in there. Nice attempt from Panatom. At least just by showing face, Panatom is able to secure the oracles for himself. PBM and Hurrywind get out of dodge just with the threat of that Camazotz. Leviathans, they're playing with house money right now. 4 minutes in, it's been a slower pace set for both of these teams so far, but one has a pretty massive lead. I'm expecting to leverage that somewhere. The Chaos team can look towards some red buff invades, or maybe just a dive.
Dive onto Hurrywind, beats down for 30 seconds. Sanctified Field drapes across the mid lane, and that is simple for the Atlantis Leviathans, and that is great playing around the cooldowns of the Jade Dragons mid laner there. Not much Hurrywind could do about that. You're under your tier 1 tower. Back further, I suppose, is the only safe area for the Jade Dragons mid. And that is probably the last opportunity the Leviathans would have had to capitalize on those beads being down, and they play it well.
They do. Now Shinto, 2 levels in the lead. Olarun significantly behind. A 2-level deficit, now only 1, as he is able to tick over to level 6, is massive. Now Shinto's got 1v1 potential, transform, changeling. Going to put threat on Hurrywind in the 1v1. I don't think Shinto necessarily needs Panatom to continually rotate in, but I'm sure Panatom will be there as well. The Jade Dragons, they're stemming bleeding. They're trying to put on a tourniquet. They're trying to slow this game down as much as possible. But the Leviathans, almost similarly, a foil to the Jade Dragons, in the past have been called the late game only team. We're incapable of playing the early game. Some of the fans would cry during their sanguine phase. Not the case anymore. Similar to the Jade Dragons, they've expanded their play style, and they can certainly push a lead like this.
Root, but no pull onto Zatman. That's been such a treat to watch, hasn't it? Even though this set is far from going the Jade Dragons' way. You know, such a growing period in between Season 7 and where we are now for the Jade Dragons in that roster. The Leviathans in this roster. Mike is dead here, you would assume. And yes, Mike does end up going down, so that's the 4th kill of the game for the Leviathans. No Gold Fury here, luckily, but the Scorpion is there, and so the Gold Fury will be up shortly. But it's been such a growing period for both of these two teams. They've really diversified their game plans, and we're seeing that from the Leviathans here, just individually running down the Jade Dragons. Everyone outside of far left and far right on the map have suffered a death. This mid 3v3 has just not felt comfortable yet.
It hasn't, and I don't think it will anytime soon. I mean, Hurrywind is behind. He is incredibly behind. It's going to be a long time before we can start looking towards attack speed or even some dedicated power items. He might have to sacrifice the traditional Stone of Fall in that second slot to try and close up that gap, but the gap isn't that massive. Just ticks over to level 8, so it's only about a level separating these two guys. Maybe more so important is the gold as of right now. The Jade Dragons, They've got to find something
could
on the
be
map.
a fight here. 4 collapsing on 4. Hurrywind is around the back. This might be our first look at Double Cthulhu and how it doesn't care about Sanctified Field. Hurrywind's got it. Rongyu uses his ultimate. Blink forward from Sanford Soccer. Fear no evil onto Shinto, who immediately answers with his beast. But Rongyu, he's been melted down. Panda Cat is able to grab the first kill of the fight, but Shinto immediately answers back. Parkour in the descending to madness, walks away from the front of this fight. Panda Cat from range has got a double. Sometimes all you need is the Uller to get in the fight, and the Jade Dragons show some signs of life here, but Zapman was not a part of the fight, and that is why the Jade Dragons come out ahead for the time being. Zapman rotates through, makes it an even 2 for 2.
6-2 is where the slash
She
line
gonna go
lies
in?
now.
She gonna go
2,000
in?
separated. Panda Cat's completely oop.
Panda Cat's got no mana. He can't jump away. He's got no chance. Shinto on a 4-kill streak here. Zapman with the read. And the red buff was not worth it there for Panda Cat to get. Shinto might have gotten it anyway. And the Leviathans, it's those second engages that really pay off in that fight. And they tilt the scales back in their favor.
Purple buff invade goes the way of the Leviathans as well. And now Zapman off a slow rotation, despite Panda Cat picking up a double kill for himself. It's Zapman coming out ahead. Now 10 to Panda Cat's 9. Shinto maintains his lead and pushes it further. 10 to Hurrywind's 8. This is tough stuff. Luckily for the Jade Dragons, silver linings do lie around. Sanford Soccer, during that entire engagement, was able to steal away some of the back camps of the Leviathans, puts himself slightly ahead of Panatom. But we're not worried about Panatom and Sanford Soccer. It's the mid.
It's the 2-level lead, right?
It's the Cthulhu, man. This is tough stuff. The team fight of Leviathans is so strong.
Rongyu takes some damage here. But so does Sanford Soccer. About the same amount that Rongyu had ended up taking there. And so you look for these next couple ultimates to come back off of cooldown. That's where the Leviathans have found their engagers. Sam found what you would think is a priority target with the Fear No Evil in the last fight in Shinto. But Shinto just immediately uses the beads and kites his way backwards. There's a big rotation in from Panda Cat, and that might need to be the story moving forward. Big double root from Rongyu. Polar Bear Mike sends his ultimate out. Bat out of hell, answered by the Fear No Evil. Shinto backs away, doesn't get the stun, and Sanford Soccer will snag the kill. Panatom run down as well, and Sam will live. Hurrywind kites back, drops to Sanctified Field, and as the first big winning fight of the game so far for the Jade Dragons, a nice swoop upwards in both gold and XP. A small win for the Dragons. That goes a long way.
Sanford Soccer up downs to avoid the stun from Shinto. Great mechanical play to turn that engagement around. I was going to make the point that, sure, you found Shinto in that initial engagement, but we haven't seen any CC come his way while those beads were down. Luckily, Sanford Soccer rectifies that just 10 seconds before those beads come off of cooldown. I did like the microplay of the Leviathans. Panatom had Hurrywin isolated, but decides to back off and try and shut down that dive from Sanford Soccer. Peel out for Shinto, unsuccessful in doing so. And now Sam has net himself a significant lead. 2 levels over Panatom.
2 levels over Panatom. And so the jungle now, a power point for the Jade Dragons. Still, though, mid and ADC feeling fine for the Leviathans. A 1-level lead in both of those. Doomorb completed for Shinto. Something in the flat pen tree will be up next, where Hurrywin. Remember, the first time we saw this Oler on this set, it was Pythag's piece into the Stone of Foul. We'll stick with the lifesteal item, Bancross Talon first, Stone of Foul still second there. That's a nice little power spike for this Oler run. Some survivability under all the pressure that the Jade Dragons have been throwing his way. The Gold Fury,
surely not
in need of some survivability. Surely yes. Polar Bear Mike is going to walk over here. Just to the death cry of the Gold Fury that the Leviathans have taken quite simply.
That was a very slow Gold Fury. Rongyu almost gets 100 to 0'd by an NPC. That's how long it took. But the Jade Dragons were not privy to it. The Jade Dragons weren't ready to put up a defense, and the Leviathans sneak away and extend their gold lead yet again. Now 2,500, 11 minutes in. This is one of the largest gold leads we've seen at this point of the game in the set so far. The Leviathans very comfortable, and I'm sure very willing to continually try and push this lead. The dual lane may have had a significant XP advantage, but fighting around Yarkor in the soul lane with Pyromancer being available feels pretty good considering Sanctified Field doesn't work against that god. I think the Leviathans are primed now to just head over to the other side of the map and try and keep pushing it.
If the Jade Dragons didn't answer you last time, maybe you're just going to get this other one for free as well. So the Leviathans pull a little bit of that gold back despite an earlier Jade Dragons fight win. Erendite completed for Sanford Soccer. So that'll be nice. Once that Fear No Evil goes down, that's important for Panda Cat to dodge. Panatom is close by. Even despite the dodge, could there still be a dive from Panatom? Bat out of hell. Extend your life a little bit in those fights. Hardcore. Sent into madness used. Sam for Soccer left running. Polar Bear Mike here as well. It's a good leap out from Sam for Soccer. And so ult used, and that's a decent ult to have down. And this one is very important to dodge. Panda Cat jumps on out, but Panatom is around the back. And there was no chance for Panda. Once that jump goes down, his life is essentially forfeit. This is important for the Jade Dragons to confirm. Ooh. I saw that range damage from Shinto fly its way in there, and I saw a very sad group of Jade Dragons for a moment, but the Pyromancer nonetheless will go to the Dragons. A good answer back to your Hunter falling on left.
That is, but not only is it the Hunter that falls, but also the Tier 1 tower, so the Leviathans get to maintain their lead, still sitting just about exactly where it was, but this time now, Zapman just getting even more farm that Panda Cat's missing out on. 3 seconds left on the ADC's respawn. Leviathans have been doing a great job of controlling pace here, but I like that play from the Jade Dragons. It was initially the Dragons pushing in towards that blue buff, forcing the defensive ultimate from Yarkor. A zero-sum trade for the Jade Dragons. They didn't dedicate any of their cooldowns, and then they fall back, go for the Pyro. Just unfortunate for Panda Cat that Panatom wasn't concerned with the Pyromancer and instead concerned himself with his life.
Doesn't this game have similar pacing to Game 2, where it still feels like the Leviathans very much in control? Gold and XP in most aspects going in their favor. And you're just waiting for that big team fight where, you know, this double Cthulhu, Bat out of hell, Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, disengage from Zapman can mitigate the Sanctified Field in mid.
Good lord.
And yeah, that's why. There's the example of it. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel just walks in, and Hurrywin's, both of his actives were down. There was nothing he could do. And the Leviathans make the mid laner pay. Zapman has used his beads on the left because Fear No Evil has gone down. Sam for Soccer has the mark on him, but he will walk away. And that is a big team fight ultimate to send out for Sam with nothing to show for it.
The thought process is so clear from Wrong You. Is Hurrywin in front of me? He shouldn't be. Blink, ultimate, every single time. And the Jade Dragons have not figured out the response.
And now you can see maybe the fruits of there being no Fear No Evil for Sam for Soccer. He'll be able to do some damage, but he will not be able to peel out for his Hunter as Yarkor just walks him down. The Leviathan's just walking down the Jade Dragons in every aspect of the game, on the map, in the objectives. There's no Fury on the left, there's no Pyro on right, but there's still a couple camps to take away, some kills to be found. Sam blinks onto Zapman, who immediately uses the Aegis, jumps up, jumps down. Sam, what are you doing taking this fight? Zapman is 2 levels up, and Zapman feeling just fine. Purple buff is here. Aegis gets used, and so maybe Sam feeling okay with the benefits of his dive there, especially if you can delay back Zapman. This is a delayed kill unless Zapman is able to find the damage. Zapman up and over.
He got him.
Oh my god, he did it anyway! Zapman in the 1v1 gets it. The 2v1 tilts the scales. Luckily, Fine OK was there to save just a little bit of face there for the Dragons.
Fortunately for the Dragons, Zapman was a much higher valuable target as well. So not only is the bounty larger for the Jade Dragons on that trade, but also just slowing down this farm of Zapman is so important. 30 seconds in the grayscale for the Leviathans ADC, whereas Sam for Soccer going to be back very shortly here. But the Jade Dragons, it just feels like they've been put on the back foot early on in the last couple of games, and the Leviathans have been playing their own game. I don't think the Jade Dragons have been proactive for the last 15 minutes?
Yeah, agreed. Does not feel like the Jade Dragons' standard game plan. And so here you're thinking it's just Sam. Clearly you know something's up. That's
crits.
1 crit. And then Sam, a little bit of damage there. 2 crits.
That has to be a crit.
And 3 crits. All right. That's all right for Zapman. You look at Wind Demon, you get a few crits.
No, that's lucky.
Never lucky. No,
that's super lucky. Insanely lucky.
You're right. The health bar, I'm like, there's no way one more auto attack kills Sam. And Sam's probably thinking the same thing. At some point, you got to roll your eyes. Everything coming up Leviathans right now, including crit chance for Zapman. And so 2, 1, and 3 is the Ho Yi. Sam for Soccer at least able to get an assist, and the Achilles for Fine OK gets his first kill of the game. And maybe this Achilles myth is going to be some of the answer to this Cthulhu come team fight time. Those executes will help dismantle the last bit of the health bar that Hardcore or Shinto, should that be his transformation, will have. And so the Achilles is going to have to play an important part in this game.
He will, but the damage output from the Jade Dragons may not even give them the opportunity to find that execute threshold. Yarkor, incredibly healthy and tanky, and even if Fine OK does do it to 1, he's going to have to do it twice. Panda Cat being hunted inside of his own jungle here. Panatom and Zatman combining their efforts, but it's nice Scorpion steal for
You stole it, nice!
Yeah, good for him. Able to secure that one for his team. Oni Fury, though, will go the way of the Leviathans, the gold lead, the way of the Leviathans, the experience. That's Leviathans as well.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and call it. Late game team fight scaling, I think that's the Leviathans.
So everything, Leviathans.
They got it.
Great chance to end this game, end this set. And what an emphatic set win this would be for the Leviathans. Going up against the Dragons, this had the makings of a real long set with the way that game number 1 went. And then the Leviathans rerouted themselves after a Fire Giant steal. They take game 1. Their game plan flawless in game 2. Looks to be the same outside of some traded back kills in game 3. You're going to take a commanding lead here in Group A. You know, the Leviathans, they win this game, they win this set, you win it 3-0, you got to be on easy street, you'd think, moving into the Phase 3 playoffs, looking like the scariest team in the league at the moment. The Jade Dragons are at the forefront of that attack right now. Another neutral objective, that's the Pyromancer given to the Leviathans. Not much fight to be had there, Myth. The Jade Dragons, at this point, what? You're farming up, you're hoping that by the time you're under a Phoenix, some more items are online, you can get some pushback.
Maybe, and the Jade Dragons do have good space control once the game simplifies on base defense or base siege. If the Jade Dragons are the ones that acquire Fire Giant for themselves, Sanctified Field becomes a lot easier to use, Fear No Evil as well. PBM's job is going to become a lot easier. Speaking of PBM, have we seen him use an ultimate yet this game? I'm not certain.
I think once, like, defensively in mid.
I'm not certain that we've seen much.
He countered out like a Whirlwind of Rage and Steel with his ult or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Like for the CC immunity, he's used it, but I don't think we've seen.
Yeah, his ult is a beads button right now.
A beads button right now. Well, he doesn't have beads, so he needs it as a beads button. Final K, we said he needed to be an impact. Not going to be able to do so if you're watching from the death screen. Ultimate already gets used. Tower goes down. It's going to be a long fight, a little bit of a chase here. That's going to buy time for the Jade Dragons to rotate in behind. Should be a kill on Defino nonetheless. Meyer sends him right back the other way in lane, and now it's a killing spree for Panatom, and it took a while, but nobody from the Jade Dragons over here on right, because where's Sam? He's hanging out over here on left in the mist, hoping that Zapman jumps out back into lane. And now Mike is the one who shows some face. He's going to be knocked over to the side. The body block keeps things interesting. Sprint used, and so the Sylvanas will live. And Sam and Panda hoping desperately that Zapman will overextend, but he is not. He's hanging out under his tower.
Yeah, what's the reason for Zapman to step up ever? He's already got the level lead, so he doesn't really need the farm right now. There's no Gold Fury available, so he's not concerned about that. Zapman very content to sit inside of his Tier 2 tower while the rest of his team dominates the other side of the map, removing Final K and a Tier 2. This gold lead has yet again ballooned, now 7,000 for the Leviathans, and I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better for the Jade Dragons. Experience and gold nearing each other at that 7,000 mark. And Fire Giant, very quickly, going to become the target of conversation here. 20 minutes in, Leviathan's decent scaling. If Zapman decides to rotate out, Wind Demon, Executioner, he's going to shred that objective.
Yep.
This could be one more team fight for the Jade Dragons to try and work their way back in. I don't think the Dragons have the opportunity to just say, let's defend on our base. I think they have to step up to this Fire Giant. If it goes the way of the Leviathans, I think they're unstoppable.
Well, here's the good news for the Jade Dragons. You know, if Game 3 continues this way and the Leviathans are able to win it, I'll hold that thought as Sam for Soccer jumps into Zapman. But yeah, Zapman's just going to go right up and down. He's got plenty of damage to deal with Sam. Zapman used his beads. Sam used his ult. And so Zapman will live on. The good news, though, for the Jade Dragons, Myth, is if Game 3 goes this way, they end up losing to the Leviathans. You've got that win under the Valkyries, and with the way that Group A has been structured, you know, top 3 teams make it to the Phase 3 playoffs, and once you get there, anything can happen that weekend. And so, you know, you're handing Group A, it feels like, over to the Leviathans, giving them serious control over this group after a win earlier in the weekend, a win over the Jade Dragons, only having Leviathans after, or only having Valkyries after that. But you asked for the Dragons to maybe step up. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Instead, maybe a Phoenix Siege for the Jade Dragons. The most you can get is some map pressure here on the left side of the map. They are doing it quickly. Panatom here, blinks forward. Sam for Soccer jumps out. Panda Cat does the last bit of damage. The left side Phoenix gone. PBM uses his ultimate to force out some ults from the Atlantis Leviathans, but Panda Cat is run down. Fire Giant in the meantime secured by the Atlantis Leviathans. But what's the cost? Nearly a body block onto Final K's ultimate, but it's a chase down in mid. It's a chase down on the other end of mid. Shinto gets PBM. Final K tossed back. FinoK gets the stun, and eventually the Leviathans will get this kill. So you get a left side Phoenix, but you lose FG, and you lose 3.
The swan song of the Jade Dragons does net them a win condition. The Titan now exposed from the Leviathans, but at a hefty cost. 50 seconds left on your soul lane, or 30 on both members of the dual lane. The Jade Dragons, without a defense, just have to watch as the Leviathans strip away a tier 2 and continue their march forward. Significant cooldowns still available. Yarkor still can descend into madness.
Seems like we are waltzing our way to a 3-0 here. The Atlantis Leviathans can take this one casually. There's only 2 members defending, and if you can even call it that, the Jade Dragons will just have to watch as their Phoenixes go down.
Good old.
Although Sanford Soccer wants to engage, but he engaged alone. On to 5. It was a great Fear No Evil, but he had nobody at his back.
Oh, he's living.
Hardcore walking forward. Sanford Soccer does live. Right side Phoenix gone. 3-man knockup from Hardcore. Panatom on a rampage. Sanctified Field does not do much. Panatom, he's got a double. Zapman adds one as well. The Atlantis Leviathans, they will sweep the Jade Dragons. 3 straight games, 2 of them not close at all. A triple kill for Panatom will seal the deal, and the Leviathans take a 3-0 win.
The Leviathans living up to their namesake,
Another
a
quad?
great
Nope.
beast in the ocean that cannot be stepped to. The team fight looks good. The early game looks good. Composition strong as well. This team, they're primed and ready, man. They are looking incredible.
This Leviathans team, maybe the spookiest thing I've had to look at today so far on Halloween, and we've got some questionable costumes here
Not
in
me,
studio.
surely. You're
No,
not
not
talking about me.
you.
Okay.
No, I'm not. No one's name in particular.
Say a name.
No, I can't do it. The Leviathans, spooky to say the least. Myth. I mean, this is a team now that has control of Group A. They've beaten the 2 other top-seeded teams in this group. They just have the Valkyries to go up against. You imagine that's a set that the Leviathans will favor themselves in.
I think so.
A top seed moving on to the Phase 3 playoffs, commanding are the Atlantis Leviathans. Don't worry if you're a Dragons fan. You've got some room to bounce back from this. You've got another game in this group, far, far from over, far, far from out of the Phase 3 playoffs. This Leviathans team it just felt like they were not going to lose today, Miff. After Game 1 went their way, they reroute themselves, and this set is all done. 3-0 to the Atlantis Leviathans. Susano and Kilcullen will take a quick break, and the desk will be back to break it down.
What was that? He's making a montage. Oh my gosh, that man with a great ricochet bounces off the wall, off the tower, and right into a waiting, impatient Imolito. You couldn't have planned it better.
An unbelievable performance by the Atlantis Leviathans lead to a 3-0 sweep over the Jade Dragons. A great performance by them, absolutely. And they are looking primed and ready for the SMITE World Championships if they keep going at this rate. And you, too, can be primed and ready for the SMITE World Championships if you prepare for this great bundle that we've got going on. You can head on over to shop.hi-rezstudios.com for the SMITE World Championship bundle. You get the zip-up jacket, which is very comfortable. I'm actually wearing my Season 7 one in between shots because this costume's kind of cold. We got the championship ball cap, autographed wall flag by the SPL players, a postcard from the Titan Forge team featuring a new original art piece, and the Season 8 digital loot pack. So it'll be really, really cool to have that autograph flag up behind you as you watch Zap and the rest of the Leviathans tear through the competition. At least that's how it's looking right now. Again, shop.hi-rezstudios.com in order to grab that. Zeus and Uller here to break down that Leviathan set. And Uller, game 1 very close. You know, really could have gone either way, back and forth. Games 2 and 3, anything but.
Yeah, not so much. And it's also the first time that the Dragons haven't at least taken a game off of the Leviathans in a set since Phase 1. Leviathans 2-0'd them way back then, but otherwise it's always gone at least a little further. This one just felt like it got a little out of hand. Early on, there's a lot of control immediately on the right-hand side. Hardcore gets a good first blood, starts things off like that. Then it starts to turn into a much more interesting conversation. The Dragons keep it a little more trepidatious. I think it was, at one point 4-4. Unfortunately for them, most of the fights after those few early skirmishes just did not fare their way. It was too much to handle. I mean, we were talking about it before. The team fight for the Leviathans just looked too solid. And unfortunately for the Dragons, they did a whole lot of team fight throughout this game.
Yeah, Leviathans dominated in basically every facet. I really feel like this game in particular, the drafting, or this set rather, the drafting did not look very good for the Dragons.
Yeah, that's an easy statement to make. I think when we saw Mike load in, so the Hades support wasn't necessarily... we saw him do it once before.
Yeah.
But maybe ill-advised? It definitely didn't do, I think, what they wanted it to do. But again, I think a lot of it was, a little bit of shaky foundation, try something. In Game 2, I'm not necessarily against that, but when you look at what the Leviathans were drafting, things just got better and better for them. Solo lane jungle looked really, really good. You got to see, first off, another win for Hu Yi as well in this one. I think everything really starts to stack up. The team fights just look much better, and the way that they were able to counter out what the Dragons were locking in as well started from minute 0 and then got to actually be exemplified there in the games.
I mean, Zap and Shinto both did more damage than Hurry and Panda Cat combined in that Game 3. And you're not going to win a lot of games when that's the case, when your backline is struggling to that degree. And look, I think you got to give a lot of credit to this Leviathans team. Your core looked unstoppable all day long, whether it was on the Ardio or the Cthulhu. Rongu was making plays as he usually has been. And Panatom continues to step up and be a huge part of the Leviathan success. And when we're talking about literally every player on your team doing well, that means it's kind of smooth sailing for you. We got Zapman standing by with Kukullen right now for a post-game interview.
That's right. It's Kukullen and the Dragons win total here in our first set of the day. Oh, Donut, I mean. Zapman with me. Look, Zap, you go. I got to ask, Game 2, maybe it doesn't mean as much to you, but I was kind of joking with Miff. Sorry, I'll avoid hitting you with a spear. I've had a problem with that all day.
Freaking solo lane.
You get the. I know, it's unbelievable. You get the Ola run. Shinto gets the Uller, I believe, in Game 2. Is it hard for you to give the reins of the Uller over to Shinto, or are you happy to let it happen?
No, the Schuler's pretty OP. One time I died and I watched him in scrims play the god, and he did 60k damage, and I was like, oh, that's how you play Uller.
Yeah, then you get the quad anyway, and Mike
I'll take the 4-key god.
That's right, you did. Mike, actually, I think interesting to bring up here. Tough to shine too much of a light on that Hades support, but is that something you guys felt pretty prepared to go up against? Did that throw too much of a wrench into your mix there in Game 2?
We kind of thought it was going to go solo, right?
So do we.
Because Sot played it, to perfection yesterday against the Ardio pick, and we had Ardio, so we were like, oh, solo, and then they picked the Sobek. I mean, I don't know. Lono's Mass first is basically the ult did no damage at all, so I mean, I don't really know. Maybe they had a game plan for it because me and Sylvanas can't get out of the alt, but they just never got to
Felt all right for
execute that plan, I guess.
And kind of final thoughts from you here, Zap. You've now beaten the Kings 3-1. You beat the Jade Dragons 3-0. If I would have told you 2 weeks ago that going up against the 2 other top seeds in your group, that you would have dropped a single game and won both, would you have believed me?
No, definitely not. I mean, we have a ton of respect for those 2 teams. We know how good they can be, and we just feel pretty fortunate to get out of the groups 2-0 so far.
Yeah, you're in a great spot now. Top seed in the Phase 3 playoffs, just over the horizon for you guys. One more set against the Valkyries till you get there. Coquelin and the donut. We'll send it right back to the desk to round out the set.
Hey, Zap was making the entirety of the Jade Dragons roster look like a donut this set, that's for sure. He was doing it to him. The rest of the Leviathans were as well. And Gore, I mean, the Leviathans, smooth sailing. They will make it out of this group 100%. I don't know if it's mathematically true, but I'll bet my bottom dollar.
I think it is. Now that everybody else has a single loss, like their worst case scenario is somebody else is 2-1,
right.
and everybody else that could be 2-1, is
right.
going
Someone
to
would
have the
to be
head-to-head.
1-2.
Unless the Valkyries do some really insane things, I think they'd have to beat Leviathans and Kings, and then they could make it, and then, of course, it becomes, like, tumultuous. But no matter what, the Leviathans are there.
Leviathans are in. That's what we know. And with the way that they're playing, they deserve to be. They will be at your Phase 3 playoffs so they can continue this run. So excited to see what we've got going on for the rest of the week. It's the Bolts and the Scarabs. They are in studio. They are ready to go. And you are in for a treat when you see this set, because the players are here in studio. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be fun.
I'll give something away.
Okay, go ahead.
Barra's dressed as a Bolts fan.
Yeah, Barra did not get the memo. Let's put it that way.
Barra
not only did Barra not come in,
he's got the Bolts joggers and he's ready to go.
And he went to shop.smiteproleague.com in order to get those, of course. A big game here for the Scarabs and a big game for the Bolts because you really can't afford to go down 0-2. That puts a ton of pressure on you. I do not think they want to put themselves in that position.
Yeah, then it starts to, if the Bolts, having already played the Titans, if they lose to the Scarabs here, then everything is on their set versus the Warriors. And that's assuming the Warriors lose one other set as well. Like, if that, at minimum, go 1-2 and end up taking a win over the Bolts, that would be bad. So here's a must-win for them. It'd be a happy win for the Scarabs. You get a 2-0, you're in the same position as the Leviathans are feeling. You are coasting through next week without having to worry too much about it.
Really big game coming up next, so make sure you don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our second set of the day.